Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Henry Withrow underway from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Tuesday edition has arrived across the network. That includes our YouTube channel. You can search that OutKick, watch the show live there. Join Chad in the chat. Or if you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you. Jim Nagy of the Reese's Senior Bowl. He's the executive director, scouting the country across college football. Bowl season just around the corner, and he will join us coming up later this hour. We'll talk prospects and more, including his thoughts on the two Monday Night Football games, which we will hit on in just a moment. John McClain will do the same. We'll preview Week 15 and look ahead to some of the pivotal matchups for postseason contention and what last night means and Week 14 meant to some teams' playoff hopes. And Mike Renner, NFL draft analyst, in hour number 3. Chad Withrow playing hurt today, literally. There's a difference between injured and hurt, and he is raising the bar on that.
Kidney stones, ladies and gentlemen. If you've had them, you know what I'm talking about. If you have not had them, get on your knees right now and thank God that you've never had one or multiple, because it is not fun at all. I will go by the experience of my mother-in-law, Bev Broberg, who told me, because I've heard doctors refer to this as male childbirth in terms of pain. It's the closest you can get to birthing pains for men. Women hate to hear this. My mother-in-law, Bev, told me that kidney stones, which she's had a couple times, worse pain than having a child. That was a worse pain than having a child.
Really?
Was kidney stones, yes.
And you've had these. I've never experienced this.
First
but you've
time
had
I
this
got them was 2010, so 13 years ago. I think I've had 5 occurrences over 13 years, and the last one was 5 years ago. So they're spaced out pretty well at this point. And I've reached the point now, unfortunately, with experience, that I know when a kidney stone is coming on. So I don't immediately freak out with the pain and try to go to the doctor. First 2 times I went to the ER because it was that bad. I felt like my appendix ruptured or something was really wrong.
That's what I would assume if I guess if I had
because you
one.
get that sharp pain, it doesn't go away, and it takes your breath, and you think, oh, there's something very wrong inside. Right now I need to get to a doctor. But once I got through the first 2 ER trips, now I know how to manage it a little bit better at home.
Does it annoy you when I'm sure some of the responses, oh, you need to drink more water. You need to hydrate more.
No, yeah. I mean, first off, I'm the first to immediately go online, and the first time I had it, and try to find out what contributes to this. And every time I find something else that could contribute to it, for instance, I eat breakfast every morning. I have 2 eggs. I cook 2 eggs. And I eat 2 eggs for breakfast, nothing else. That's my breakfast every morning. And now I read today somewhere, and I feel like it just could be an algorithm that's got me targeted, that's triggering me, that says too many eggs can cause.
It's like the disclaimer at the bottom of an ad for any medicine or pill that's out there, a remedy.
In the moment, it'll have you rethinking everything you've ever put into your body.
Yeah, may cause, and it lists everything.
I gave up Mountain Dew 13 years ago. Because I was convinced that it was Mountain Dew that caused the kidney stones the first time. Good things for it, though, are things that I like. Caffeine, coffee, that helps. All diuretics. Beer helps diuretic. Also, they say a beer or 2 a day actually helps keep kidney stones away. So there you go. If you needed an excuse to drink Yeehaw beer, as we're here in 6th and Peabody, there's your excuse. Drink beer to keep kidney stones away. Very simple.
Well,
but Hutton, I'm good now. I appreciate the concern. Ready to roll. Playing a little bit hurt.
When he said that he had the kidney stones going this morning, I was like, well, we're going to have plenty to discuss today, recapping things. But I never expected Chad to be in studio. It happened fast. You used the screen, right, to find.
I also had a false recovery where I had the initial batch of it, and I thought, okay, I'm good now. Went about an hour and 15 minutes, and then I had it again. I'm like, oh, man. It rarely does it go that long before it starts again. Then I'm thinking I'm not okay. But now it's been about 3 hours since then, so I promise you'll get the very best of me today. I promise.
Withrow working on the remedies. We certainly found a remedy for exciting football Monday night with both games. Giants and Titans both winning on Monday Night Football. Starting with the Tennessee Titans, it's the biggest upset based on the Vegas line in the NFL this season, and they do it in an improbable comeback where Will Levis and company march down twice and score twice to beat the Miami Dolphins 28-27 after effectively giving the game away, not in similar fashion, but in the same song, different verse as they did the previous week against the Indianapolis Colts. They had special teams miscues that set up scores. They fumbled the football. They had a pick six. They had gifts at the end of the game that separated the score. And then the Dolphins gave the game away. And the Dolphins lose to a bottom feeder. And they traditionally, over the last 2 years, they have boat raced those teams. They have propped up the numbers against those teams. Last night, Chad, we saw what Miami's also capable of. And that's not putting up a ton of points and touchdowns. That's stalling out. And they did that with Tyreek Hill sidelined with an injury. Now, he came back in, and I give him props for pushing through and trying to do it. And as soon as he did, they started to push the ball down the field more. But with Tua getting sacked and the offensive line not holding up against Harold Landry, and the Titans not quitting after the fumble on the punt return, setting up an easy score for Miami, when they got in the red zone, the Dolphins stalled out. And meanwhile, we saw the version of Will Levis that can lead the Titans beyond just this season and beyond just one of the teams in the bottom third of the league.
So the Titans did everything in their power to make sure they didn't have a shot in this football game, starting with the muff punt. That led to a quick touchdown for the Dolphins. Then a bad pitch from Will Levis leads to another touchdown. They gave away 7 points earlier in the day after getting a big turnover where it looked like the Dolphins were going to go score a touchdown, and then they turn it right back over for a touchdown. They spotted the Dolphins 21 points in this game and still won. I have no idea how to explain what just happened in that game, because if you told me Titans miscues would lead to 21 Dolphins points, I would have told you they were likely going to try to surpass that 70-point mark they had against Denver early this year. But instead, the Titans win the game. And yes, the Dolphins fell apart late, didn't get any of the stops they needed, didn't get the first downs they needed, went 3 and out. The Titans took this thing from them. They gave it away, and they took it back. Will Levis with some big-time throws. Offense got going. Tyjae Spears, good-looking young player for the Titans also. I was shocked to see the Titans, a bad team, against the Dolphins, a good team. The Titans are the ones making the critical errors to give them points. And yet, in the end, it's the Titans just taking it from them. And not as much the Dolphins giving it away as the Titans just took it. I thought Tua Tagovailoa looked bad.
Yes.
Last night. It looked like he couldn't do a 3-step drop at times without stumbling and falling down. Terrible footwork by him. I thought Will Levis, he looks like a franchise quarterback other than the decision-making issues at times and the mistakes. And that was the biggest issue I had with Will Levis at Kentucky, decision-making, big-time mistakes. He made them last night. Bad pitch to Derrick Henry, pick 6. I mean, he's making mistakes, but the arm talent is undeniable. I don't know if anyone could ever deny that. I mean, he made some throws last night, Hutton, off his back foot, one to DeAndre Hopkins, that it looked like he was just almost trying to throw it away, and he drops it in a bucket to him. It is impressive to watch this guy throw the football.
It is. He's been inaccurate at times. Last night was not one of them. It's his first start where he's passed for more than 300 yards. It's a game where he threw the ball 39 times. He has 2 games this year where he's thrown 30, or excuse me, 2 games. Last night was 38. He had a game earlier in the year where he threw for 39 attempts. And he had a game where he had 29 attempts as well. 33 attempts is also a part of that. Ryan Tannehill, for quarterbacks with the Titans since 2021, and it's mainly just Tannehill, although we've seen others play like Joshua Dobbs. Tannehill has had 3 instances of games where he has attempted 39 or more pass attempts. Will Levis has had 1 in his first start. He had 38 last night, and he had 33 2 weeks ago. So they're putting the ball on the arm of Will Levis, and they're letting him sink or swim. And, Chad, I think it's pretty evident that they will be moving forward with the rookie from Kentucky that they traded up to draft in the second round. As for the Dolphins, this is a team that when they peak, they are virtually unstoppable because you have to meet and match point for point. But when they suffer 1-2 or they're hobbled on the offensive line in a different way, where their guy's playing but he's pushing through an injury instead of being sidelined, they're in rough shape because Tua doesn't handle the pressure very well whenever you can corral him. And I think it's important to note, I think the defensive effort by the Titans last night was this: surround the Miami offense. You're not going to match them man for man. You're not going to match them best talent against talent across the field. But you have to surround them. They did that for the most part. And they held Miami to 2 of 5 in red zone attempts, and they stalled out. That's what Miami's capable of doing, and they've done that whenever they face good teams. That's the knock on them. And last night we saw them lose to a bad team, up 14 with 3 minutes to play, and we haven't seen a comeback like that in a long time. Long time. The Titans pulled it off, and it ended up being an exciting finish. It's a big win for the Tennessee Titans because they had not won a game on the road. They have virtually a roster full of young players or undrafted players that are trying to either prove that they should be a part of a rebuild that's coming, a roster turnover, or they're a veteran that continues to play well. DeAndre Hopkins continues to shine. One of the best receivers in the league. He's in the top 20 in receiving yards. The Titans' top receiver last year finished 77th in the league in total yards receiving. That's Robert Woods. Right now, they've got Hopkins that has been a hit. Henry rushed for not much. But the defense is still key on him, Chad. And then they have a rookie in Tajay Spears that seems to be a player they can build around in many ways, in run or pass. Miami didn't handle that very well. I'm surprised more than just by the result that the Titans went and won. It's the fact that the Dolphins' offense wasn't the reason why they got the lead in the first place. They were handed that win, and they still could not win with Tua holding the football a minute and a half to play. That is why Miami is not considered to be one of the teams that we mention if you're discussing who is truly the best team in the NFL. They're in the NFC right now. The AFC, while Miami's mentioned for the top seed, people are hesitant because of issues that they show, and when they turn the football over, they lose the game.
Well, and just before the game, recently I watched the latest Hard Knocks in-season episode, and Mike McDaniel addressed the team. This is before the Washington game at 8-3, and said, a year ago, we're 8-3, and we lose 5 straight games. And then the season cratered, fell apart at that point. Here we are again, 8-3, one more time. So how are we going to respond? Well, they responded well in blowing out Washington to get to 9-3, but then you see the cracks in the facade again. And Tyreek Hill's injury certainly played a part in this, but you can't fall apart to that level offensively because Tyreek Hill is only playing spot duty throughout the year. He wasn't throughout the game. He wasn't ever completely out of the game for the Dolphins. What a win for the Titans. Biggest development for the Titans is this. If Will Levis continues to play close to this, the way he did last night, you're not having to worry about quarterback. You've got a second-round rookie contract at quarterback. That frees up a lot of flexibility for what other things you need in the draft. And this team needs a lot. But that helps the Titans immensely. For the Dolphins, it is try to recover from this, which was it was the biggest upset of the year.
Yeah.
Point spread-wise. Recover from that awful home loss and try to bounce back and get back in the mix for the number 1 seed in the AFC. It's still right there in front of them for the Dolphins. And then on the flip side, what a night of Monday Night Football when you look at Tommy DeVito and the Giants taking down the Packers and eliminating me from the eliminator picks in our competition.
Think about the storylines of the backup quarterbacks and how those that can go on a 2-3 week run. We're seeing it with Jake Browning in Cincinnati. Tommy DeVito is the new Joshua Dobbs with the buzz, right? The storylines there. And then you either have the rookies who are up and down, or you have some starters and vets like Joe Flacco that could lead their team to the top of the AFC North. DeVito, though, is an amazing story because of the character that he has embraced and that he became, not from a run from the first start, with all the detail and the background of living in his parents' basement. How it's crazy that he even is in this opportunity, to now where they have Tyrod Taylor back and available, and they're sticking with him, and they just beat the Green Bay Packers, who were coming off wins against teams that were leading their division. And it's DeVito that's the talk. It's the agent on the sideline that also fits the character of Tommy DeVito. It can't get better than what we're seeing for DeVito and the Giants, considering where they are and how bad, how atrocious they were throughout the season. And now all of a sudden, they're playing spoiler with a quarterback that is playing spoiler for some other quarterbacks around the league that are thinking they may have a shot to make a roster next year as a backup. This guy is all the buzz, all the rage. Plenty of detail to hit on him and his agent. And now he's upset with Peyton,
who looks like a Dennis Reynolds character.
McGregor for president in Ireland. What do you think? The UFC star has floated the idea of running for office in the past, but now seems more serious than ever. This week, he took to X and explained why he would be a better alternative than the current competition if he runs. He looked at all of the candidates, and he said all of them with unbreakable ties to their individual parties' policies, regardless of what the public outside of their parties feel. Now, these parties govern themselves versus govern the people. Then you have me, 35, young, active, passionate, fresh skin in the game. I listen, I support, I adapt. I have no affiliation, bias, favoritism toward any party. They would genuinely be held to account regarding the current sway of public feeling. I'd even put it all to vote. There'd be votes every week to make sure. I can fund. It would not be me in power as president. It would be the people of Ireland. It would be me and you. Honestly, from these two posts alone, he's already said more to me. I'm not a resident of Ireland. I won't be voting in this election, obviously. But as someone who would be voting in any type of election, this is the type of things that I would want to hear from a candidate. So even though I won't be voting, he's got my attention. He's speaking very thoroughly, very eloquently. I respect everything that he's saying so far. Now, McGregor has also been outspoken in recent weeks about the politics in Ireland following the stabbing of 3 children in Dublin, in which the suspect was claimed to be a foreigner. Now, the UFC star had a lot to say about Ireland's immigration policy, which occurred simultaneously, you can remember, with the mass riotings, which allegedly landed McGregor in hot water with tabloids reporting that he's being investigated now for inciting and hate speech, which, of course, makes absolutely no sense and paints an even poorer light on the politics going on in Ireland currently. Now, according to a poll that he put up on X, it seems like people are really taking the prospect of his running for president seriously. He asked people that if he did run, would they vote for him? The answer overwhelmingly was yes. There was nearly 220,000 people voting at the end of when this poll closed. Connor came in with 88% of the vote. Honestly, again, I've already mentioned that I think he'd be a good candidate, but why not? He's already truly laid out such an eloquent case for himself. He is fresh skin in the game. He has no self-serving interests. As a former UFC champ in the lightweight and featherweight division, which, by the way, he was the first UFC fighter to ever hold 2 simultaneous titles, he knows what it means to fight and also to win. That is a mentality that not everybody has, but not everybody can have. And also, he's young. He's outspoken. He's not afraid to stand up for what he believes in. And he has been showing us sports fans that for years. He's a proud countryman. He already has made plenty of his own money. So there is no need to get involved in shady politics or corrupt deals. And actually, it reminds me of somebody else who used to be president. Not in Ireland, but here in this country. Ringing any bells to any of you out there? In fact, I actually remember Conor McGregor calling Donald Trump the USA GOAT on MLK Day back in 2020. Listen, that says a lot about what he looks for in a politician, and I can imagine would hope to emulate one day if the occasion does indeed arise.
Sixth and Peabody are located with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hi, Mike with Hunting with Row. Chad's in the chat. You get any advice on the kidney stones?
Not a lot. People seem unconcerned with me, which is fine. Not a lot of sympathy over here. People have their own things to deal with, Hutton.
This was, luckily for you, though, a very fast situation. Normally, it can be a long process.
Yeah, it can. I've been lucky enough not to have them where they have to go in and break them up with a doctor.
Yeah.
So this one was a little bit longer than normal, actually. Usually I can be done in about 2 hours. This was about 5, starting at 7 a.m.
Just in time for the holiday season, the OutKick store has launched. Playing on a new field. To celebrate, we're offering a buy one, get one 50% off deal for a limited time. You can find our favorite polos, T-shirts, and more when you visit shop.outkick.com. You can score 50% off. All you got to do, shop.outkick.com is the website. You add the items to your cart, and then the discount will be automatically applied. We've got the polo headed our way, don't we?
We do. Yep.
That's good.
I do indeed.
So no polos worn by Tommy DeVito's agent, or for that matter, probably Tommy DeVito, if they're playing the characters. Maybe it's just them. The agent, by the way, absolutely is the Italian stallion, Sean Stellato.
Sean Stellato on his Instagram page says, agent, athlete, author, advocate, 40 under 40. He's also 45 years old now. That was an older post. You could have told me, by the way, Sean Stellato, because he's clearly wearing makeup, could be 45 or 25, and I would have believed you either way. It's hard to tell how old he is.
He looks more 45-ish
He is.
to me.
He is 45. He is, and when you see him without the hat, he looks 45.
Well, he looks 45 based on the ring and the bracelet.
The hat really gives him some youth. I'm considering wearing a hat like this in the show every day to make me look 20 years younger, like this guy. He's in the National Italian American Sports Hall of Fame. He is from Salem, Massachusetts, married to Krista, and has 4 daughters. Okay, that's what you need to know about Sean Stellato. Here's what else you need to know. He looks like central casting for a member of Tommy DeVito's clan. The family, the agent, the representative, it is perfect. I joked before, he looks like a Dennis Reynolds character from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia that he would be trying to pull off. Remarkable, this guy.
The pinstripes.
I mean,
black on black.
I thought it was a joke. Like when they kept going to him, like, is this like a bit? Is this his cousin, Sean, that they're acting like is his agent? What is going on, and why is he dressed this way? No, this is him. This is who he is, and I love it.
So he's the president of his own company. Of course he is, SES Sports. He has represented a number of NFL players. They include punter Ryan Allen of the New England Patriots, former Commanders and Cowboys running back Alfred Morris.
Yeah.
Let's see, San Francisco 49ers running back Sean Drawn.
Sean Drawn, I remember him.
And there are a few others. Jonas Gray, who flashed on the scene for the Jacksonville Jaguars a few years back. There you go.
Peyton Manning on the Manning cast just eviscerated him every time they showed him, but in a playful way. He was joking and saying, I want to know what's in that bag. He had the bag on the sideline the whole time. What's in that bag? And he kept doing impressions and called him Johnny Fontaine throughout the time when they showed him, and was joking with Eli and said, Do all the New York agents, when you're with a New York team, do they are they slimy like this guy?
Yeah.
And this guy apparently was not happy to be called slimy by Peyton Manning for his attire.
I wouldn't want to be called slimy either, if that's who you are.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's also how you would kind of describe a character in a movie that's like that, in appearance, right? It looks like a Godfather character.
Again, it looks like the whole family looks like it's part of a bit.
I want Hard Knocks following them around.
Yeah, I think SNL is going to do something with this now because it's a New York team especially.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
But the whole family...
You're right.
And I also let me say this. I think they're legitimate, Italian American. They love cutlets. They love red sauce. I've seen videos of their spread for their tailgate. I wholeheartedly believe they're 100% genuine with that.
It's the opposite of Will Levis and the mayonnaise.
Do I think that they're going like a little bit over the top? Like I think Paula Deen puts on the Southern accent a little bit too much when she's on television? Yes. I think they're going a little crazy with it at times. The cutaways, the family,
and they're
the
smart
celebration.
for doing it.
Well, I love after the big completion and the dad, everybody's going nuts. He's going, relax, relax, relax to the whole family.
Spelling it out like Rodgers.
Amazing.
The viral fame of Sean Stellato.
I do look at that spread, though, they had pregame, and I want to devour everything on that spread. It looks amazing.
Yeah. The entrance music, too, for DeVito at home is amazing. Play it up. The Giants should. They have.
Yeah.
And they win. They're continue to play them.
You got a winner in this guy and this family. I want more of it. Just like you mentioned, it's the kind of the new Josh Dobbs. I wanted more of the Josh Dobbs. Hopefully it doesn't end the same way it did by being benched at some point for DeVito. The guy looks good, too.
Yeah. Yes. It's been okay.
Yeah.
It's been okay. Speaking of being benched, Al Michaels has been benched. He is not going to be a part of the playoff broadcast crews like he was last year for NBC. They are opting to just, go with different groups instead of having Michaels a part of the secondary broadcast team that would be a part of the Saturday kickoff that would be on NBC. Of course, Tirico would also have the later game. But instead, they're going with Noah Eagle, who is the son of Ian Eagle.
Yep.
And that will call one of the networks, I believe they have 3 this year, 3 playoff games. So, and Tirico and Collinsworth will be on the other 2.
Noah Eagle did some of the Big Ten package for NBC throughout the year also, so you'll know his voice when you hear it.
Well, so the Post interviewed Al Michaels, Chad. This was like last month, and said that they had heard, hey, have you heard this, that you're not going to be a part of it? And he said, no, it's in my contract. Where are you hearing this from? So he's surprised by it. But, I mean, this has to just go back to the audience knowing that he's not the same energetic Al Michaels, isn't it? And NBC picking up on that and now going to the young broadcaster to move up the ranks a bit.
Yeah.
But he's a legend. He's a legend. Normally you have that guy that is not missing the postseason if you have the option to put him on a broadcast.
Yeah, if everyone is saying it, there's got to be some truth to it. And that's the way I feel about Al Michaels. I don't know that he's gotten the memo on that. So I think this is more of a move to say, you're not getting it at this point in your career. You're not seeing it, but everyone else is saying it, and we all believe it. So we think everyone is correct and not just you on this.
And
so
next
year,
that's
what's happening.
Next year is his final year of his current contract with Amazon Prime for Thursday Night Football. Could be his final year. Doesn't sound like he wants to hang it up, just by reading through the lines on what he said. He's been my favorite broadcaster.
He's terrific.
But he has lost that energy and that pop to what was that broadcast team. And it's evident. I was trying to deny it at first, but as it continues, that's a trend. And while some of the Thursday Night Football games haven't been good, you still the big plays are still big plays. Yeah, and it's not a 3-yard run.
I'm not here to offer life advice to Al Michaels or anything like that.
Same.
Can try to do whatever he wants to do. But I'll just say that on Earth, our time is finite. And there's a time to work and a time to be retired. I mean, that's the natural process of life. Not every human, in fact, very few humans are meant to work their entire lives and to continue doing it forever. So there comes a time. I'm not saying it's Al Michaels' time. That's up for him to decide, and that's up for his employers to decide. At least one employer right now is kind of deciding for him on this playoff decision. But there's a time and place to work, and there's a time and place to be retired. That's all I'll say. This is not advice for Al Michaels, who would never need any advice from me because the guy is a legend. But there does come a time where most humans need to hang it up and worry about other things in retirement and not doing the job the same way they did when they were 45 years old or 35 years old or whatever. That's all I'll say.
He just turned 79. So maybe he could.
That's a time most people are retired.
He can run for president now.
They've also been retired for a while. I'll say the same for
me too.
Politics, too. There's a time to be retired, and there's a time to work. And when you're in your late 70s and 80s, typically there's a reason that throughout American history, most people retire by that point and well before it. There's a reason for that. I'll lay that out there and let the audience take from it what they will.
Yeah, the audience knows.
In regards to announcing or politics.
Yep, that's right. Meanwhile, they go with the youth for NBC. But Tirico's been fantastic. And the 15-year run for Sunday Night Football was really good for Al Michaels.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Also great, time for overreaction across the National Football League.
Guys, it's been a fun weekend. I know that now we're actually getting forward to seeing games on Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So we're going to keep things rolling with the NFL coverage. But after last night, guys, the Dolphins, they'll make the playoffs, but they're losing in the first round.
I'm not going to go there yet. I still think this team is going to get – I think they're headed for a wild card game. The way this thing is going, I don't know. In that division, maybe not.
No, I think they'll win the division.
I think they're going to win a game.
They're winning it.
I think they're going to win a game, and that's it. That's my prediction. So overreaction on that one.
I don't think it's an overreaction because right now they are going to face right now they'll face the Browns, Steelers, Colts, Texans, Broncos, or the Bengals. And by the way, the Bills are making a climb. So if they get the 2 seed, they're going to get someone other than maybe they're going to get a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
If they fall further down, they're going to end up facing a team like possibly the Texans, if they can come out of whatever C.J. Stroud's got concussion protocol-wise, or they faced Cincinnati that can match up with them. You have to match up with Miami up front in the trenches. They don't adapt the same way we see other teams like San Francisco, who's banged up on the offensive line, Baltimore, who's banged up on the offensive line. They can handle it. Miami can't handle it. So if they have a good defensive front, if they face Cleveland, I want to see that matchup up front of the offensive line for Tua Tagovailoa. It'll be a long day.
Hud, I believe you said this yesterday, but Sean Payton, Coach of the Year. So for this next one, he's leading the Broncos to the playoffs.
Yes, I think he is. I mean, they lost a close game, I know, to Houston. But at 5-8, keep in mind you've got ahead. Russell Wilson is their quarterback. As you look ahead to possibly Houston playing without C.J. Stroud, Gardner Minshew is the quarterback in Indianapolis. Backup is in for Pittsburgh. Backup is in. The fourth quarterback is in for Cleveland. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, Chad, that we see Denver in the postseason and they make that climb and they could win a game on the road and be that surprise team.
I'm going to say they're going to get in.
Oh,
I'm a believer
fine.
now.
Okay, 4 weeks.
This is not an overreaction. I think they get in.
All right, guys. Well, one of the best games from the weekend. Sorry, not one of the best games, but one of the most notable wins over the weekend was the Cowboys dominating the Eagles. And right now, the Cowboys will win the NFC East.
I'm going to say yes. I think that we've seen it's the NFL. Things change week to week and certainly over 2 weeks. But I'm looking at where the Cowboys are going right now. I like their trajectory. I think it's overblown that the Eagles are somehow falling apart. But I like this Cowboys team with their improvement over the course of the year. I think the Cowboys win the division.
I think it is an overreaction to say they're winning the division because of their upcoming schedule. They win at home. This week they play at Buffalo. The following week they play at Miami. They will then host Detroit. Those are 3 straight games of really tough opponents, and I believe one of those is on a short week. So combined with the Eagles' schedule of Seattle, New York Giants, Cardinals, New York Giants. The Eagles have gone through their tough stretch, and they've lost some games to some good teams. They will finish with an easier schedule. It comes down to the final week, and I think Philadelphia wins the division.
Guys, we'll stay in the NFC. Right now, there are only 5 teams in that conference with a winning record. The NFC will have 2 teams with a losing record make the playoffs.
I don't think it's an overreaction.
I mean, the NFC South winner is probably going to have a losing record, so that's one.
30 teams right now remain in postseason contention, and 24 teams are either in playoff position or within 1 game of a playoff spot. 24 teams are within 1 game, and there's a lot of losing records. 16 teams have a losing record, so I don't think it's an overreaction that we see 2 teams get in with a losing record in the NFC. Jim Nagy joins us next.
So in 2019, Sean McDermott, talking to his team in training camp, gave a really stupid analogy. I mean, really stupid. He was talking about 9/11. He was talking about how well coordinated the attackers on our country were. And he was trying to make a reference about communication. He was trying to make a reference that these folks communicated well to one another. It's totally idiotic. I mean, I don't give a damn whether they communicated well. I don't give a damn whether or not they synchronized. I don't care. They were criminals, terrorists at that got the absolute, well, they're the absolute worst of the worst. And I get a little fired up and I stumble over my words. I actually had stuff written down for this, but here's the thing. You got to understand when you're speaking in public, I don't give a damn if you're trying to make a cute analogy. You never use Hitler. You never use 9/11 terrorists. They are the worst of the worst, period. There's nothing good about them. I don't care. You know, how many times have we heard people talk about Hitler and say, yeah, but no, there's no yeah, but. When you do what these folks did to people and families, our country, other countries, you simply never praise them ever. You're not being clever. You're not being smart. You're not making a great analogy. You're being an insensitive clown. And I never use the word insensitive. I don't. I honestly don't. Insensitive to me is meaningless. Let me change that. You're being just a moron. Don't do it. It's not smart. It's not clever. It's not, well, look at how he. No. Horrible human beings. You never reference John Wayne Gacy or Dahmer or Manson. Never. In no way, shape, or form. Now, having said that, hey, how about we get over ourselves? How about we get over what happened 5 years ago, 4 years ago? And here's the deal in sports, and I've told you this before, okay? There's always the list. And when things go bad, here comes the list. So all of a sudden now, the Buffalo Bills are struggling. All of a sudden now, Sean McDermott's leadership is being called into question. And all of a sudden now, something that McDermott has apologized for, both in front of the team and to his bosses, 4 or 5 years later is being brought out. Now, that's ridiculous. Look, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do stupid things. At least that's what the preacher tells me on Sunday. At least that's what when somebody in church, Traders Point Christian Church, says, hey, look, if you've sinned, raise your hand. And everybody raises their hand and the preacher says, yeah, I did too. We're all sinners. And we all demand forgiveness, except when it comes time to actually forgive. and forget. We never do that. We just can't. We won't. We're so full of crap. We just are. And you can act and say like we aren't, but we are. Who here hasn't sinned? Cast the first stone and all that stuff. Oh, yeah, we're all sinners, boy, when somebody does, particularly in sports, particularly when they're losing. We can't wait to jump on them.
Glad you're with us. 6th and Peabody is where we broadcast. OutKick and Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Check that out. You'll love it. Not bad at all.
It's good. Very good.
Delicious. Delicious. So is Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Reese's Cedar Bowl. He'll join us in just a moment. Chad, the storyline of the transfer portal, seen a lot of it. Even, Oregon, we're seeing back-to-back years now. And, of course, Notre Dame has brought guys in. Guys have left. Another guys. Riley Leonard, officially, the Irish quarterback. Not a surprise based on all of the discussion. But throughout college football, it has been about development. How would you describe what the coach's job is now? Because you can't just develop the guy who's coming in one offseason in limited time in the spring practice and when you're allowed to be on the field, when you're not, the allotted hours, when you can work out, when you can't. And the development has happened to an extent with another coaching staff, and especially at that position, I would expect in some cases, and maybe in Leonard's case, you're not having to do this, but you're having to dumb it down a bit in terminology because you haven't been with said coach and said program and system for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
and I don't know how I would describe the job now. If it's not development, it's just on the field instead of off.
Well, and it's really incumbent on the quarterback who makes the decision to transfer to go to a place and get ingratiated with everything about the system, about their teammates, everything else. I mean, it's a crash course. You are cramming for the final exam to get ready for a season, coming in and knowing you are the hand-picked starter for that program. Sam Hartman did it to mixed reviews at Notre Dame this past year. I do think Riley Leonard could turn out to be a much better option for Notre Dame because he is a dual-threat quarterback. He can also run it. Sam Hartman was not that. This is going to unlock parts of Notre Dame's offense they didn't have this past season. And I'll say this, my neighbor is Riley Leonard's cousin.
Okay.
And the moment I saw he was in the portal, you immediately got whispers about Notre Dame. I sent a text and said, so Notre Dame? And they're very tight-lipped about it. I said, we'll see. We'll see what all happens, right? I do think that there was a thought-out process here. I don't know when the decision was made. I don't know what happened. I think this was a very, very deliberate move. Okay?
So,
I don't think this was let's just throw some blades of grass in the air and see which way the wind is blowing and see who likes me as a quarterback. I think it's a very deliberate move.
So, and I agree with you.
And I think it's a good one for Notre Dame.
It's also a move. And
sucks for Duke.
Keep this in mind, too. This is going on everywhere. It's also a move for it to be a deliberate move that you have to know well in advance of the time period of which you are allowed to enter the portal and then talk to teams. Especially in the quarterback world, in the NIL and quarterback world. The discussion behind the scenes during the season, I think, is the next big story that will pop. The tampering, the recruiting, and discussions that are behind the scenes when a coach who is trying to do it a certain way is pissed off to the point where news bubbles up to the surface. And this is not just a Riley Leonard thing, and I'm not saying it was absolutely what happened here. But if you're looking for, okay, you've got to go to a place that has the system and the coach that you want to play for and the personnel, you're not doing that on your own. You're doing that in some way with the liaison. Is that your future agent? Is that your current one? Is that your family member that's talking? You're a coach that from a high school, something. There's a line of communication that is the go-between that I am fascinated to see the reaction to when it's all out there, especially from the quarterback realm.
I'm fascinated about what's going on in Nebraska.
Okay. That's another one.
This is unbelievable. Nebraska went 5-7, Matt Rule's first year. And now suddenly, a lot of news comes out yesterday. Different recruiting publications are shifting their prediction for the number one quarterback in America, Dylan Raiola, whose father played at Nebraska, who committed to Georgia months ago, is going to flip his commitment and sign with Nebraska on signing day. Hutton, this simultaneously is taking place while Kyle McCord is in Lincoln with Julian Fleming, another former five-star Ohio State receiver, also possibly going to Nebraska. Is this a program that's figured it out? That's figured out that there's some money there that they can tap into, and they're going all in the transfer portal to bring in quarterbacks. We're looking at a high school quarterback that's a five-star, number one quarterback in the country, and a transfer option for this year.
Chad, let me ask it and answer it with this question: does Matt Rule take that gig without having that person or people behind him? In this world of college football that he re-entered, you're not taking the gig at Nebraska if you don't have that option.
No, they have that option, but here
to this level
again. Everyone's got the money, though, that's of sound mind and resources. So this would still be Matt Rule having to go close and convince the number one quarterback in America, who's also going to get paid a boatload at Georgia, right? Georgia, where he committed, to come to Nebraska. And Kyle McCord, who I'm guessing has more options than just Nebraska, these are steals for Nebraska right now. Because this is a program that, while I believe, we know they have the resources, fan base, all that, they could be a factor again. Most in the football world believe they're dead forever.
You're right.
They're done. That they're in the middle of America. It's not a big population center. It's freezing cold. Nebraska is an icon of our past. Tom Osborne's not walking through that door anytime soon. That's the way most of America thinks about Nebraska. Now, if you get Kyle McCord, celebrity college quarterback from Ohio State, to come over, and you can get the number one quarterback in the country to go to Lincoln, that's huge.
You're asking what's next?
Huge win for Matt Rule.
So
I don't know that they need a lot more other than that, right? I mean, that's a huge step in the right direction if they can get quarterback right.
And now those guys recruit for you.
Absolutely.
No different than what happened at Texas last year.
Yep.
A year and a half ago, whatever. And keep in mind too, from the NIL space, what was it that they also at Nebraska, just from the monetary aspect of this, how much did they end up paying in a buyout whenever they fired their coach, Scott Frost?
A lot. I can look it up and find it.
They waited past.
They let the buyout go down because they restructured his contract. Whether they did renegotiate where the buyout did go down before that last year just to keep his job.
But they didn't something kick in though, some type of bonus?
$15 million.
So if you consider some of the other money that's been thrown out.
It would have been $7.5 million if Nebraska waited until October 1st.
Right.
They fired him in September.
And they paid him more when they could have just waited a couple of weeks.
Which I was against because I feel like they were just doing their buddy a favor. They did it like a week before that.
But
they could have easily cost him that money, and they said, we know what we're going to do. We're not going to let you not get that $7.5 million. I
see. Now, based on your description and who they've landed, I'm thinking, man, I was way off because I'm thinking they just they gave extra millions to the guy, to the face of the Nebraska program that it didn't work out and he's got to go, right? We're going to fire them later. We'll fire him now and give him more. We'll give him double. I look at it now and think the people with the money didn't bat an eye. They were ready to pony up, and Matt Rule was already kind of in the mix at that point. Because Rule, based on what was going on in Carolina, he was out. And you were also in the mix for some other coaches that were good options and backup plans if you didn't land Matt Rule. But it's an about face this offseason already.
No, it is. And they're top 25 right now. I want to say 22nd, 23rd in high school recruiting with their current class. But Raiola's going to make him a top 15 class by himself, a 5-star quarterback coming in. It's impressive to see what Matt Rule is doing. Now, none of it's happened yet, but what's being rumored and what's out there that could happen, if some of this happens, very impressive for Matt Rule.
Who else is winning the portal right now? So you've got Deion last week who landed.
Deion got a good one. Ole Miss
not in the portal, but in recruiting.
Ole Miss is getting guys to visit. I know Walter Nolan from Texas A&M is one of them. They're going to be a major player in the portal. Hutton, I look at it and I think I just saw a report from On3 that Trevor Etienne, the running back from Florida, it's likely he's going to go to Georgia. So there you go. The rich get a little bit richer with Georgia.
And Travis, right after the game earlier this year against Utah, I believe, was the game where Travis Etienne tweeted out, he's got to get out of there. Time to enter the portal.
Yeah, he stuck with it for the year, and then he got out, and now he may be going to the rival of the Florida Gators, the Georgia Bulldogs.
You're right. The rich get richer.
So who's getting the big quarterbacks? To me, that's who's winning in the transfer portal right now. Notre Dame is winning for getting Riley Leonard. It's tough to know. And
Oregon.
Also, there's Oregon with Dylan Gabriel. Hutton, every team has different portal objectives. Ole Miss structures their entire season around the portal. They're going to go add their key contributors every year in the portal. They're going to cycle out their team every year, and they're going to get 6-7 stars in the portal. That's where they allocate their resources. They're not going to have great high school recruiting classes. So are they winning? I mean, they're doing what they do, what they have to do. To me, the teams that are going to win are the teams that aren't overly reliant on the portal, but get the perfect fit for what they need and what's going to happen. The other one is it's a cost analysis. South Carolina is a good example. They've already got one guy from Coastal Carolina coming in. Well, they lost Juice Wells at receiver. This is 2 years in a row now where they've lost quite a bit from their roster that they'd want to keep on their roster, but they're adding in the portal also. But I think it's a net negative for South Carolina. It certainly was a year ago with what they lost, and it looks like it's going to be that way again this year. So tough to know right now. We'll see where the dust settles, but I think you've got to separate those programs that will operate mainly in the portal and go for their guys there and reset their roster each year versus those that just need a couple of supplements at some different spots. And can they get the guys they target first out of the portal?
Chad, Patrick Mahomes apologizing for his outburst and reaction to Sunday's game and the neutral zone offsides penalty called on Kadarius Toney. After, of course, looking at it, you can see he's lined up right on the blue line that shows that he's offsides, lined up offsides. He is lined up offsides. I believe they went back and tracked this 4 different times during the game, and they call it with 1:24 left in a crucial moment for the Kansas City Chiefs. The outburst on the field going right after Carl Cheffers, and then also, of course, be mic'd up post-game with Josh Allen, and then what happened at the podium. The quote now, though, to 610 Sports Radio in KC yesterday, obviously you don't want to react that way. I mean, I care, man. I love it. I love this game. I love my teammates. I want to go out there and put everything on the line to win, but obviously I can't do that. Can't be that way towards officials or really anybody in life, so I'll probably regret acting like that. But more than anything, I regretted the way I acted toward Josh after the game because he had nothing to do with it. Was still hot and emotional, but you can't do that. It's not a great example for kids watching the game. So I was more upset about that than I was about me on the sidelines. That from Mahomes.
Yeah, he was right to apologize because he was being a jackass to Josh Allen, and I get it. Emotions are running high at that point. He's disappointed, but going back and watching the video of them where Josh Allen's coming up and trying to shake his hand, he was still very
Allen
hot.
says that's one of the worst effing calls I've ever seen.
Yeah, at that time. So yeah, he was right to apologize.
Yeah,
it wasn't a bad call though. It was called. He was well offside.
It has been called 11 times this year, called twice all of last season, once in 2021.
They need to call it more if a guy's a full foot over the line of scrimmage. If he's on the line, then you give him a warning.
Call it 4 times then in the game.
Well,
he did in this game.
Is he on the line or over it? He was well over it there.
4 times on Sunday.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement, and today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Hot Mic with Henry with Row across the OutKick network. Solid Monday night football matchup in both instances. We've got plenty of takeaways from both games coming up throughout the show. Chad, my one beef as we kick off hour number 2, I'm so over the split screen, picture-in-picture, of one game on ABC, one game on ESPN, and them forcing us to watch both games, even as the Giants game goes final. I'm sure you've noticed this too. Big moments are happening in Miami, and we're watching Tommy DeVito go up and, speak and hug and high five and do other things with his teammates and the opposition while the Titans and Dolphins are going back and forth. Dolphins with the football with a minute and a half to play. I don't need to know that that's happening on ABC at that current time.
It's an unnecessary flex by the Disney Corporation in that they've got both games and they're flexing how they're showing both games at once, when in reality, if you're on the network that has that game, it's because, now bear with me here, Hutton, you want to watch that game and not the other one. So you're going to make the money and get the eyeballs of people watching each game. You don't need to show everyone that, hey, we as a company also have this other game. Because if you go to ESPN last night, you're going there to watch Dolphins-Titans.
Yes.
If you go to ABC, you're going there to watch Giants-Packers. Do you know where all the revenue goes? To the same place. So it doesn't matter what people are watching at any given time. They want to watch the one game that they tuned into that channel to watch and not both games in a split screen. It drives me insane when I see that, Hutton.
Yeah, it's just a flex. And I like the fact that SVP is giving us score updates. But that's all about it.
It's great.
That's
you can come
all I
back
really
from break and give an update, but don't go split screen.
That's right. Jim Nagy joins us as we kick off hour number 2 for Hot Mic with Henry with Row across the OutKick network. He's the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl.
Jim hates split screens too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though we have one up right now, this is the only split screen.
Yeah, you got to have the conversation here. Hey, Jim, thanks for joining us, man. Hope all is well.
Yeah, guys, good to be on.
What do you make of Tommy DeVito and the run that he's on right now?
I wish I had him in the Senior Bowl last year. That'd be a cool guy to be following. No, not just Tommy. I mean, Tommy's a great story. I mean, for any rookie, let alone an undrafted guy. It's similar to like when we talked about Tyson Bagent with the Chicago Bears, who was in the Senior Bowl last year. Really similar story. Undrafted guys kind of thrown into the mix, and they're making the best of a tough situation and really leading to probably average offensive rosters if we're being honest, to wins in the NFL, and it's a hard league to win in. So really cool story. And then I love the side story with Sean Stellato, his agent, who I talked to quite a bit on the phone about players. So Sean's become kind of a media darling here the last 24 hours after his outfit popped up on the pregame show last night. So now it's there it is.
It all fits, Sean. Doesn't it?
Does he sound like a guy that wears that fedora when you talk to him on the phone?
He talks very fast. I love Sean. He talks very fast though. It does. It fits.
So in regards to the quarterback discussion, Jake Browning, another example of jumping in the mix and what they're doing in Cincinnati. Browning's skill set fits that offense very well. Do you expect it to continue based on what you know of the quarterback?
He surprised me, honestly. Now it's
Same.
been a number. It's been a number of years since Jake came out of school. So this guy's had a lot of time in the NFL. He's played in other leagues. He's grown a lot as a player. Coming out of college, did I see this? No, I would not have seen this from Jake Browning coming out of college. So, and I think it's some of that time in the other leagues helps these guys, man. That's why I really am excited about this XFL USFL merger. It's great for all these guys. I mean, you're just getting reps. You're getting physical reps you would have never gotten before. So Jake's at a different point right now as a quarterback than I would have seen. But I do think he's a great fit for what they're doing. Bengals philosophically, they've got a guy now that kind of mirrors what Joe Burrow was. I mean, they're pretty similar. You don't have to change your offense. So I think that's a good thing. And, back to DeVito, I think what's making it worked for him and what it, helped Tyson Bagent out as well is the mobility part. I mean, the game's going to move fast for those guys when they get to that level. And you can't just sit back there and be a sitting duck when you're trying to figure out what you're looking at. So you got to be able to move around. I thought DeVito was a real threat last night with his legs, and we saw that with Tyson when he played too. So when you're looking at these, this next wave of quarterbacks for this year's draft class, some of these down the line guys that look like they're going to hit, I mean, really watch the athlete. Let's see how mobile they are.
Senior Bowl coming up February 4th. Jim Nagy's the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, and juniors will be a part of this as well. As far as quarterback development goes across college football, with the transfer portal, Chad and I were having a discussion 15 minutes or so about are we seeing the same type of development from a QB in college as they move into professional football? I would imagine that's very difficult if you're jumping around and trying to match skill set with system and then learning said system just for a year, for a flash. Have you noticed that since 2021 doing what you're doing?
I'll say a couple things in terms of the development. These guys, in a lot of cases, they're not getting the on-field reps they need, so they're going to find other places to do so. And I mean, I think Bo Nix is a great example of that. He played right away at Auburn, and now we've got a guy with 60 career starts, which is an amazing case. But that's not always the case. You got guys like Joe Milton. We just got a commitment from Joe Milton from Tennessee the other day. And it took Joe really 5 years to become the guy. He spent all that time in Ann Arbor, and then goes to Knoxville and sits behind a Hendon Hooker, and this was his football team. So even though he was in school a long time, like, he didn't really get a chance to develop too much on the football field. But where I think these guys are ahead, and someone asked me the question the other day in the media about Joe Milton in particular, and just said, from that Tennessee offense, is it going to be difficult for him coming down there to the Senior Bowl, running a lot of NFL concepts? I said, it really shouldn't be. He spent 3 years at Michigan, so these guys, they probably are a little further ahead just mentally. They're exposed to so many different offenses now when they're transferring that I think in some cases they're actually ahead of the game.
With Joe Milton, what is the number one thing NFL people need to see from him at this event when he gets down there? Is it going to be the interview process, talking through the game? What do they need to see from Joe Milton?
I think the interview process is going to be fine because you guys were around him at SEC Media Days. He's got a ton of charisma. I mean, this guy can take over a room now. He feels comfortable any situation he's in. Like, even watching him down there in the Manning camp this summer around all the other guys, like, he was, he's kind of got some it factor to him. He's a cool kid. I think the biggest thing is going to be the accuracy part. I think everyone can look back to when Josh Allen was in the Senior Bowl, and I mean, everyone's got a story how a ball came flying into the stands and Josh wasn't the most accurate guy. And now we've seen how that panned out. I think if you're in a draft room right now and you're fighting for Joe Milton and you're trying to make a cause for your team to draft Joe Milton, you're pointing at Josh Allen, and then you're just going back to last year with Anthony Richardson. Because, a year ago at this time, I had a conversation, or just about a year ago at this time, I had a conversation with the GM talking about Anthony Richardson. He said, Jim, you could make an unbelievable highlight tape of this guy, and you could make a pretty bad low light tape of this guy as well. I think you could say something similar about Joe. And I'm not saying he's going to be the 4th overall pick in the draft, but people that think that Joe Milton's going to slide on draft day and get into the 5th round, that's not going to happen. I mean, this guy's he's huge. He's a good athlete. He has a rare arm. That's going to be must watch TV there just with Joe Milton down here. But if Anthony Richardson goes 4 overall to Indianapolis, I don't think Joe Milton's, I think there's a good chance he ends up going on day 2.
What is the discussion like, Jim, behind the scenes for you, trying to convince player A, player B, player C to come to the Senior Bowl instead of just working out on his own? Is it more than that? Is it with his representative? How long does the process actually take?
There's not a lot of it. It's a great question. Thank God there's not a lot of that. Most of these guys get the invite and they're jacked up about it and they jump on it. I'm actually going to have one of those phone calls later this afternoon with a player. I think we're greatly past that. But when I do, here's my pitch is that, again, I'm not disparaging the scouting community. I was a scout for 20 years. Those are my people. That's who I am. But it's a lot, it's one thing to be in a draft room and have someone like me talking about, I was in Knoxville and I saw Joe Milton do this in practice and I saw him make this throw. And here's what the people in the building say about him. It's an entirely different thing when you're trying to build buy-in factor in a draft room, when he's been around your head coach, when he's been around your GM, when he's been around your personnel directors, and they've seen him and they've felt him and they've talked to him. It's just a lot easier. Those guys are making the decisions. And they're just normal guys too. They're, like they might have a big title and they might make a lot of money. But I think we're all just humans and we're all just trying to surround ourselves with people we're familiar with and comfortable with in the workplace. And so why wouldn't you come to Mobile and spend a week with these guys that are really going to determine, the fate of your career? I think if I told you coming out of high school that you could come to an event with all 32 head coaches, or at least all 32 GMs, we probably get somewhere, 20 to 25 head coaches come to the game. But if you could be around all these guys that are going to decide your NFL fate, you would go, right? And I think 100% of high school kids would say, yeah, and then, fast forward 4 years and they have the opportunity. And I get it when there's guys, if a guy's going to be a top 10 pick, like a lock top 10 pick, I'm not talking about the mock draft stuff and what the media's talking about, but if he's getting real feedback from NFL scouts, through usually his college head coach, that he's a lock top 10 pick and you don't want to risk injury, I get it. Outside of that, I think our game has a ton of value.
Is there a trend at a position? Meaning, are you speaking, other than quarterback, are you speaking with a position group more often than not, trying to get that next tier group to attend? Or is it just across the board about the same?
It's just, it's case by case. I would say the guys that are most fired up, that jump on the invites the quickest, are the offensive linemen. Not a lot of prima donnas in that group. I mean, that's why right now we just got 2 commitments today that we haven't pushed yet. Another guy that could go in the first round. I think we've got 6 or 7, 8 maybe offensive linemen that could all be first round picks this year. And I think a lot of those guys are going to go. I think you've seen the offensive line play around the league this year. I think there's going to be a run on those guys, and I think it's going to happen pretty early. I don't know. I think it's case by case. The DBs, our DB group right now, we've already got over 20 defensive backs committed to come play in the game. So it's kind of a one-off, I would say.
How can Spencer Rattler help himself once he gets down to Mobile?
I think with Spencer, it is the interviews. I think the arm talent is there. I think everyone knows that. I think, as we talked about on the show a bunch this fall, I think he was able to really showcase more mobility than he has in the past, playing, behind it at times a shaky offensive line situation. So I really think it's going to come down to how he does in the interviews, because I think the on the field part stuff will be really good. And I think the interviews will too, based off what Shane Beamer and those guys say in South Carolina. But he is going to have to answer some questions about, unfortunately, he was part of a TV show in high school with TV cameras in his face as a 17-year-old. And, he's probably going to answer some of those questions. But I really feel like he's matured. And I think South Carolina's staff has really cleaned a lot of those questions up. But I do think the interviews will be big for him.
Another guy that you've got committed for the Senior Bowl, someone I'm very interested in, big receiver Johnny Wilson from Florida State. What are you looking forward to seeing with him when he gets down to Mobile?
The red zone period will probably be the biggest thing. I've joked around, if these teams, and we've seen this now, we saw this a couple of years ago for the first time. I'd never seen it before. I'd never worked for a team that ever did this. We had a receiver here in Mobile, Jalen Tolbert, at the University of South Alabama, and we had his draft party, and he showed up at the draft party that night. It was the first night of the draft, so Thursday night, and he and I were just talking, confidentially, and what teams were interested. And he said, it's really weird, Jim. A couple of days ago, Dak Prescott called me, and we talked for like an hour and a half. And he was, we were going through different, formations and play calls, and so the Dallas Cowboys used Dak Prescott that year, and they took Jalen in the 3rd round of that draft. Right now, he's their 3rd, 4th receiver, getting some really good time for him. But they used the quarterback. I've said this: if teams brought their quarterbacks to Mobile this year, every quarterback in the league would be pounding the table for Johnny Wilson, because this dude he's over 6'6", and that's not in the media guide. That's not on the website. That's what the NFL scouts got him at in the spring. He's 6'6" and 1/8 of an inch. He's 240 pounds. He's got like a 7-foot wingspan, 84-inch wingspan. So he's truly one of those guys you can just throw it up to. And we all know all the quarterbacks want that. So I think those red zone periods when he's going against smaller DBs and just his ability to really big boy people will be what most teams are looking for.
Final minute here, Jim. From the scouting aspect, were the games that you attended during the regular season for guys more important than bowl season? Because I know games are limited in the bowls, but they're scattered, and teams try to rank the bowl games they would like to attend. How important is the next month or so for NFL scouting departments in person?
I'll say this. It's really weird. Not many people know this. You go into a lottery system as a team. If let's say you're the Tennessee Titans and you got 6 games you want your scouts to go to, you put in for the lottery for those 6 games, you might not get it. You might get, and then what happens is you'll get like 4 other games you don't want to go to. And then you find out which teams are going to the games you want and you start trading and stuff. But, no, I would say for the most part, the hay's in the barn for these guys. I mean, if they have a great bowl game performance, especially in a game where there's a matchup, like a one-on-one matchup, a pass rusher against a tackle, you can always help yourself. But for the most part, the book has been written so far in terms of the college season. And now we get ready to go into the spring.
Jim Nagy is the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, joins us weekly. We break down the top talent headed to the NFL. Talent is needed, especially on offense and up front on the offensive line. Jim, thank you as always, and we will catch up next week.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, as always. Chad, next week I want to discuss J.J. McCarthy with him. A lot of chatter about J.J. McCarthy and where he's going to end up in the first round of the NFL draft.
Can't wait.
John McClain joins us next. We recap what happened last night on Monday night.
It depends on certain things, but I feel like now it's like a teammate. Like that should be your partner, your teammate. Like I'm not cleaning all the house all the time because I'm not your mom.
I agree. We're double income, no kids, so I really like a partnership, but I don't want to take the trash out.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to do that.
She takes the kids, I provide. Very traditional.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that more young people should do that?
Yes, very much so.
What is it about like a motherly quality that you like?
It's worked for thousands of years and it still works today.
I like being girly. I'm a girl and I like being girly, so I like traditional to girls.
Okay, well, according to the 7 Hermetic principles, one of those being the law of gender, gender manifests on all levels, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all levels. Throughout the cosmos, there's gender. I don't know, it's a lot. It's a book I read called The Supreme Way of Men or Women or something like that, and it spoke on how whether it's 2 women or 2 men, there still has to be someone who's masculine, someone who's feminine.
What would you spend on an engagement ring?
I'm not an engagement ring type of person. But if she wanted a ring, I'd probably spend like 20 on it.
20 what?
1,000.
20,000. That's a lot of money.
Big and shit.
You don't get that lady a real answer.
Not for real. Ain't it how much you make though?
Price, I didn't really care. Size, absolutely. Had to be big enough it could be seen, and I didn't want like a basic ring. I wanted like eclectic, like vintage looking.
Okay.
So we did a custom order to do my ring.
I didn't have a preference. I just had a gold preference, and he kind of took it from there.
And you trusted him. Did he crush it?
Oh, yeah, he crushed it.
I've been spoiled thus far, and so I don't think I could ever go back from what I received last time.
Okay, so high standards. That's good. What are the standards?
Okay, it was 5 carats.
Okay.
And it was beautiful.
Mine was way too expensive.
What's way too expensive?
Like $45,000.
Okay. Wow. You probably went with a real diamond.
Very much so, yeah.
Do you think that that's kind of a flex for the guy? Like, is the engagement ring, is the engagement ring only for the girl, or do you get to watch other people look at your girl's ring?
Solely for the girl. Solely for the girl.
You don't get any enjoyment?
Couldn't care less.
Red flags in dating, because obviously you found each other. Did you have any icks that you overlooked, or is he perfect?
No, he's perfect. We had a nice night out at the bar. Fought over a toy shark, and that's how it all got started.
What don't you like? Red flags?
Cheating, lying, stuff like that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What are you looking for in a woman?
Honesty, respect, in love for herself.
Some green flags are loyalty and trustworthy. Red flags are seeking attention from other women.
Jealousy, probably biggest thing, especially being around other girls all the time and having other girlfriends. That would be the number one thing, is jealousy.
Red flag is they're on their phone too much. Green flag is they're on their phone a lot with you.
Well, look for loyalty. That's it. I'm 24, so it's hard to come across that like when you're young. So that's really all I look for, really, honestly.
What were deal breakers?
If she was broke, I know that sounds crazy, but for real, if she was broke. Cause like it's like, yeah, like I don't want to take care of a motherfucker. Like I want to equal.
I'm Mike with Row rolls on across the OutKick network. Glad you're with us and pleased to be joined by John McClain. Joins us weekly. We talk all of the NFL headlines, the rumors, the hot seats, the upsets, and more. John, good to see you. Hope things are well.
Have you guys had Sean Stellato on yet?
We're trying. We're efforting right now, John. We want him and his fedora on this show immediately.
He's shopping for suits right now, John.
Yeah, he's been said a friend of mine's in New York is talking about all the talk shows up there talking about him. W-Fan wants to name Tommy DeVito MVP the way he's going. Tommy DeVito called his agent, Sean Stellato, the Italian stallion of sports agents. It's a great story, even better than Will Levis.
He looks like a guy that's got a guy for everything, John, when I see him. He's got a guy for everything.
Yeah, he's a guy you need when you need a guy.
Yep.
How the Miami Dolphins losing in that fashion to the Tennessee Titans and knowing that the Bears get a victory, and you start looking around at the other upsets this weekend. The Giants win last night. There are some teams that are trying to find their positioning for the postseason. They're still leading their divisions. But, John, teams that just aren't grabbing wins in crucial moments that will come back to bite them. In terms of Miami, how do you view them right now?
The fact that they lost when they were trailed by 14 in the last 3 minutes, and the way the Titans came back, played great defense and great offense, led by Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins, it was monumental. They went from having home field advantage in the AFC. They lost it to Baltimore. There's no great team in the AFC. To me, the three best teams are in the NFC, 49ers, Cowboys, and Eagles. I don't think the Ravens are a great team. The Chiefs right now are great at whining because they haven't been in this position for a while. And it's amazing because it was supposed to be just the opposite. Not only is it a great race for not who is the worst team in football, but right behind Carolina. And it's a race to see who is the best team right behind the 49ers, who obliterated the Cowboys and the Eagles. So I love crunch time, the December and January now stretch drive. And those games last night, I wish they hadn't been simultaneous.
Yeah.
I wish they'd had staggered start times, but they were so exciting, led by rookie quarterbacks, improbable come from behind victories, and a lot of embarrassment. Speaking of embarrassment, I saw perhaps the biggest in the NFL, Texans, who had won 4 and 5, go to the Jets. Jets had scored 2 offensive touchdowns during their 5-game losing streak, and they forced Zach Wilson back in the lineup. All he does is throw for 301 yards. They knock C.J. Stroud out with concussion. We don't think he'll be playing against the Titans, and they embarrassed themselves. And that seems to be what's going on around the league. And it's a tribute to players, but also coaches like Mike Vrabel, who have their team still making big plays to pull off upsets at a time when they could be more concerned about high draft choices.
Was that Jets performance you saw, John, against the Texans, was that a tribute to Robert Saleh? Is that a tribute to Zach Wilson? I'll be the first to admit I did not see any performance like that from Zach Wilson coming at any point, given what we've seen from him. What was the biggest shock to you, and what do you think it says about Robert Saleh and this Jets team?
I'll tell you what was the biggest shock to me, Chad. Like, you had one of the worst offensive coordinators ever, Nathaniel Hackett, terrible play caller. He proved it. You had Zach Wilson, who was awful. An offensive challenged team with issues at coaching, with controversy surrounding Saleh's job, Joe Douglas's job, as well as Zach Wilson's job. We know he's going to be gone. And they come out, nothing to lose. Texans acted like they didn't want to play in the rain. And it rained, but it wasn't cold, it wasn't windy. And it was 0-0 at halftime. And I thought the Texans, who have played 8 consecutive games, settled in the last 30 seconds, none by more than 7 points, would keep it close, whether they won or lost. And the Jets scored 30 points in the second half. And they lose Nico Collins, their best receiver. They lose C.J. Stroud, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, on top of losing Tank Dell, the great rookie receiver the week before. So the Jets just crushed them, stomped on them. And now DeMeco Ryans needs to do what Mike Vrabel has done, get his team up to go somewhere and win a game when your team is down.
John, I do want to get your response to the wild finish of that Chiefs-Bills game on Sunday. Patrick Mahomes has since apologized for his reaction and behavior during the post game, during the aftermath of that call. What did you make of the call? What did you make of Mahomes' response? And for that matter, Andy Reid's negative response to it as well.
Well, I thought both of them made a fool out of themselves because they're not used to losing. It's something they're not going to accept it. But for them to be whining like that, because Tony was offsides, he was clearly offsides, blatantly offsides, and we all saw it. And what I saw Mahomes apologize for was not so much going off after the game blasting the officials, but it was because he complained to Josh Allen just at a time when Josh Allen was really excited about winning. But I thought the Chiefs have not been playing well. They've had issues at wide receiver. And when your wide receiver is such a dumbass, he can't just look at the ball and see he's offside. He should be the subject of your ire, not the officials.
Has he spoken, John? That's one thing we've seen responses from Andy Reid and everyone else. I don't know that I've read a single quote from Kadarius Toney about that
good
play.
Point. I haven't read it, haven't heard it, haven't seen anything on social media. I believe he'll have to talk Wednesday, and he probably should just fall on the sword and say, yes, I'm a dumbass.
How about Joe Flacco? Jets may look like a bit like a dumbass for not bringing him on since he was so close there and wanting to play. But what about his performance and this Browns team that, with that great defense, John, continues to find a way to win enough and hang around?
They've won games with 4 different quarterbacks, the first team to do that since the Texans in Bill O'Brien's second season. And their defense has given up a lot of points now. That was not the case early. But it's, we talk about Tommy DeVito and Will Levis and other quarterbacks who've come off the bench to engineer victories. But Joe Flacco was on his sofa 3 weeks ago. It's obvious he was working out. They would have won his first start, but he threw a bad interception at the end of the game. But, man, he's come back. He's played well. Of course, he's rested. Sure, a lot of quarterbacks would like to feel as frisky as Flacco is back to turn 39. It's a great story. They had to put him on waivers to get him back on the practice squad. Team could have claimed him. Team could sign him off the practice squad, but he can refuse to go, and he don't want to go anywhere but Cleveland. What happens if he continues to play well, and he looks good in the playoffs, and then they come back next year, he's 39 years old, and they have their quarterback with $230 million guaranteed with a cap figure of 60-something million? What do? Do they keep the old guy? I'm sure they'll keep him, but man, oh man, every time Watson doesn't play well, fans are going to be chanting, Flacco, Flacco.
John, if Sean Payton takes Denver to the postseason, is he coach of the year?
There's a lot of good coaching jobs going on. Peyton has one of them. I just watched the Texans beat him 2 weeks ago, but they come back and they beat the Chargers. And that's not that big a deal. They still play the Chargers again in Denver. Now they get him without Justin Herbert. But there's no doubt he's done a tremendous job after a slow start. Kevin Stefanski's done a great job. You know, the top candidate, Dan Campbell, he's out. At one point, Mike McDaniel's out. Now DeMeco Ryans, who moved up from third to second. And even though they lost to the Jets, he's now the betting favorite in Vegas. But if the Titans beat him, then he's going to drop down. It wouldn't surprise me if Sean Payton doesn't move up there, because while Russell Wilson's not playing great, he's playing a lot better, even though I watched him throw 3 interceptions and lose to the Texans.
Home field advantage does not matter all that much in the National Football League anymore. But it matters. Well, say that again.
I was just going to say, not anymore, but the only time it's really advantage to me is if the weather's bad,
right,
and you're outdoors and you're playing a team that's used to playing indoors.
Why does it matter so much to Dallas at home? Because they win and win and win and win at home. And are you buying the Dallas Cowboys this year after back-to-back divisional losses to San Francisco after 12-win regular seasons?
At home, you know, if they could get home field advantage, but they got to finish a game ahead of the 49ers, doesn't look like that's going to happen. They have a difficult schedule. We think it's difficult. They got to play Miami, and the Titans just embarrassed the Dolphins. They play
Buffalo this week, I think.
Buffalo. They've got a much tougher schedule than Philadelphia. What it looks like is they'll get a home game. They win. They're going to be playing the 49ers again. And do we see them winning in Santa Clara against the best team in football? I hope they get that far. And then they're going to lose, and then their fans are going to be crushed, because right now, all their fans, they're talking Super Bowl for the first time since most people in the country weren't born.
Yeah, the 90s. That's right.
Speaking of a lot of people not being born, the last time this team had a lot of success, how about the Detroit Lions? Bears 28, Lions 13 on Sunday, John. Is this the Lions now at 9-4? Is this a situation they can easily correct and pull themselves out of, or are you seeing some issues this Lions team they simply can't correct this season?
Chad, like I thought they were going to run away with division, thought they were going to be in the running for home field advantage. I watched a couple of guys on the pregame show pick them to lose to the Bears at Soldier Field, and I thought, man, you guys are off your rocker. No way, with this game meaning so much, them in the running for home field advantage, are they going to lose to the Bears? And not only did they lose, they got clobbered. And I'll tell you, the team's going to have an issue. Bears going to have first pick. Justin Fields is playing better, doesn't have a lot of weapons around him. How do they make that evaluation to take him, Caleb Williams, maybe Drake May? They got a difficult decision coming. It's a good one, but it's good that the Bears have Carolina's pick, because the Bears are doing enough, it looks like, to save Matt Eberflus's job before they have to make that monumental decision when it comes to the franchise. But the Lions, Dan Campbell says he's going to have to get a little more ornery, and I guess he's capable of doing it, but they've got to do something, because they're going to win the division. You know, the Packers blowing that game to the Giants, inexcusable to Tommy DeVito if they did, and so they'll win the division, but boy, they could be a one and done based on how they're playing right now.
Is Dak Prescott or Brock Purdy your MVP currently?
Ooh, if Prescott could play all those games at home, it'd be him. He gets more attention. Purdy plays for the best team. Both of them have been fabulous. People talk about, well, Purdy does it because he's got great weapons, like Christian McCaffrey, and of course his array of receivers and tight ends, George Kittle. But they've got some pretty good weapons in Dallas. There's a big run right now for Dak Prescott. But if people have to think about it, if it's a tie, look what happened in the game that those two played against each other. If I can't make up my mind, I'm going to look at that. If that's the case, you're going to vote for Brock Purdy.
How worried are you about Philadelphia, who will play on Monday night against Seattle?
Philadelphia's schedule now, which was the toughest in the league, they played more teams with winning records than anybody. Seattle has a winning record. Do the Seattle have a winning record?
Not anymore. They're now 6-7.
Okay, they're 6-7, so the schedule gets easier. I think they'll bounce back. But we got to remember, guys, no Super Bowl loser other than New England has gone back to the Super Bowl since the Steelers in the 90s. And so I think it's hard for whatever reason. You would think the Super Bowl loser would be the hungriest team in the NFL, but they just struggled to put it back together. Eagles were a house on fire, running over everybody. And now they're going to get they might not beat the Cowboys for the best team in the NFC East. It's been a long time since a team repeated as champions in the NFC East, and that might happen again with the Cowboys supplanting them as division titles.
Final 30 seconds, John. Another big one on Sunday night. The Ravens visit Jacksonville. It's a big game for the Jaguars.
Jaguars have not been good at home. I think they've lost twice as many as they've won. They've been really good. One loss on the road. Trevor Lawrence, it's amazing. I thought he's going to have to have his leg amputated, and he comes back and he plays with an ankle injury. Is going to have a hard time getting better against that Ravens defense. I'm going with Baltimore.
Some crazy other matchups. You look at the records, you're like, not a good game, but I'm thinking Bucks, Packers. You've got Broncos, Lions, Chad, going back to the Detroit matchup there. Steelers, Colts. This is a weekend of, if you want to get in, win these games in week 15.
It's going to be fun, and we'll talk about all of them with John McClain next week.
We will.
You're the man, John
Thank
McClain.
you, John.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to it, guys. Thank you very much, as always.
Sports Radio 610 is where you can find him. And also, you can find him on social at McClain_on_NFL. Chad, coming up, on the bus or off the bus, go around sports, and I have a feeling Tommy DeVito will be brought up.
I hope so. Tommy Cutlets?
Cutlets.
Maybe
the
his
agent as well.
too?
That's next on Hot Mic with Ed and Withrow across the OutKick Network.
What would you spend on an engagement ring?
I'm not an engagement ring type of person. But if she wanted a ring, I'd probably spend like 20 on it.
20 what?
1,000.
20,000. That's a lot of money.
Hey, and she gonna get that lady a real answer. No, for real. Ain't it how much she make though?
Price, I didn't really care. Size, absolutely. Had to be big enough it could be seen, and I didn't want like a basic ring. I wanted like eclectic, like vintage looking.
Okay.
So we did a custom order to do my ring.
I didn't have a preference. I just had a gold preference, and he kind of took it from there.
And you trusted him. Did he crush it?
Oh yeah, he crushed it.
I've been spoiled thus far, and so I don't think I could ever go back from what I received last time.
Okay, so high standards. That's good. What are the standards?
Okay, it was 5 carats.
Okay.
And it was beautiful.
Mine was way too expensive,
What's way too expensive?
like $45,000.
You probably went with a real diamond.
Very much so, yeah.
Do you think that that's kind of a flex for the guy? Like, is the engagement ring, is the engagement ring only for the girl, or do you get to watch other people look at your girl's ring?
Solely for the girl. Solely for the girl.
You don't get any enjoyment.
Couldn't care less.
Do we think gender roles are a thing of the past, or we should bring them back?
I feel like it depends on certain things, but I feel like now it's like a teammate. Like that should be your partner, your teammate. Like I'm not cleaning all the house all the time because I'm not your mom.
I agree. We're double income, no kids, so I really like a partnership, but I don't want to take the trash out.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to do that.
She takes the kids, I provide. Very traditional.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that more young people should do that?
Yes. Very much so.
What is it about like a motherly quality that you like?
Worked for thousands of years and it still works today.
I like being girly. I'm a girl and I like being girly, so I like traditional gender roles.
Okay, well, according to the 7 Hermetic principles, one of those being the law of gender, gender manifests on all levels, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all levels. Throughout the cosmos, there's gender. I don't know, it's a lot. It's a book I read called The Supreme Way of Men or Women or something like that, and it spoke on how whether it's 2 women or 2 men, there still has to be someone who's masculine, someone who's feminine.
My friend, do you know what Riz means?
Yeah, Riz is like, it's like game. You know what game is? Like when you're trying.
I don't have any, but I know what it is.
It's like the new word for game. So meaning like you're able to speak well and get, a date kind of.
I do not.
Do you have any guess?
I could guess.
What do you think?
It's like, I don't know, razzle dazzle. I don't know.
Kind of. Actually, you're not too far off. Charisma.
Riz, charisma, I've been able to talk someone up,
Did you read that online, or did you already know what that meant?
I'm on TikTok way too much.
Okay, another word that has become very popular this year. Do you know what mentee B means?
I don't know any of this stuff. I'm not on social media. I don't know any of it.
What about mentee B? Do people use the word mentee B in real life?
What is that?
You don't know mentee B?
I've never heard of mentee.
A mental breakdown?
What?
Mentee B.
A mental breakdown.
Oh, you have a mentee B. I never know it. But I like that. I didn't know that, but I like that.
Mentee B, is that like that chocolate mint thing?
What does mentee B mean?
I have no idea. I don't know what that is. Mentee B, you ever heard?
You don't know mentee B?
I've never heard mentee B. Never in my life.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. OutKick store playing on a new field. New OutKick store just launched, Chad. To celebrate, we're offering a buy one, get one 50% off deal for a limited time. You can find favorite polos, t-shirts, and more when you visit shop.outkick.com. Score 50% off. All you got to do, visit shop.outkick.com. Add the items to your cart. Discount is automatically applied. Making it simple. And Chad's even willing to fold a shirt for you.
I'm going to get that most likely to yell at the ref hat and send it to Kansas City for Patrick Mahomes after his outburst.
That's good.
Maybe he'll wear that.
Yeah. We can,
Inspired by Clay.
Clay receives mail here. We can cut up a portion of that letter and put it in there as a, verified piece of history.
Let's make it happen.
We do it all.
Certification. As I said, I've offered to fold for those that want me to fold your shirt. I'm an expert at it. I can do that.
Professional. Time to go around city to city, town to town, on the bus, off the bus.
What's up, gentlemen? How are we doing today?
Great. Davey.
Wonderful.
How are you?
You can hear the enthusiasm in my voice as we get set to do this show.
Where are we
and
headed?
This segment. We're starting in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Talk of the town, guys. It's Tommy DeVito. So on the bus, off the bus, Tommy DeVito will start for a NFL franchise next season.
I am on the bus with this. He will start a game for an NFL franchise next season. He is not going to be the franchise quarterback or said starter going into the season. But the way you have this written, yes, he will start a game in the NFL next season.
I'm going to say I'm on the bus. He's going to be the Giants starter next year. I too often get way too wrapped up in these things. I get it. I probably also, if you went back to 2012, I said Jeremy Lin was going to be a five-year all-star. At some point, I may have said the same thing. I think that he is going to play well enough and continue to do so that he's eventually going to be the Giants starter. So I'm going to go on the bus.
I'm looking at this and thinking there's no way in hell if you are Brian Daboll, you can go with Tommy DeVito in a must-win type year if you survive this season.
Well, I also look at it and think, are you going to go Daniel Jones in a must-win type year given his injury history also?
Yeah, but I mean,
you could have him as a backup for sure, and feel like you got a good backup option with him.
With a chance to start a game, yes, and win with him.
Chad, you mentioned the Jeremy Lin. This is pretty much the updated version of Linsanity for New York football. It's a good comparison there. All right, guys, we're going down. We also had another Monday Night Football game. This one happened in Miami, and Tua is not the Dolphins franchise quarterback.
He looked really bad last night. I'm going to say off the bus on anointing him not the guy long-term for Miami. But I've got some concern watching him a couple times this year. And I just thought he couldn't stay on his feet last night. It's a very odd performance. He looked like a baby giraffe at times trying to move around. That part was very weird. He was not himself last night, not very good. I don't know, Hudden. What do you think?
I'm off the bus with this. Tua is their guy. They picked up his fifth-year option. He's guaranteed $24 million next year. they are moving forward with Tua Tagovailoa.
I'll also say this. If you watch anything with Mike McDaniel and me watching the Hard Knocks in-season edition, I know that he kind of has to be this way as his offensive-minded head coach. He is all in on Tua. He loves the guy. Every interaction they have is positive at all times. And he's a pretty positive dude anyways. But if you're just reading body language of the head coach with his quarterback and what he says to him, I feel pretty confident saying he's the guy moving forward.
He completed 70-something passes of his 100 pass attempts in the month of September. I'm looking at a 4-game snapshot, not a 1-game snapshot that we were talking about last night. He passed for 1,000 yards in his first 4 games. He passed for 8 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I think he's just fine within that offense.
The reason I bring this up is because back this offseason, Tyreek Hill said he was going to call it quits after his current contract. So that means after the 2025 season, he's done. You just mentioned Tua. They picked up his contract for next year. So that would leave 1 year left with Tua and Tyreek. And I ask it because I looked it up on StatMuse.
After the 2025 year, you're saying?
That is when Tyreek, that's his contract's up, and that's when he said he wants to retire. Tua without Tyreek has a passer rating of 88.8 and 27 touchdowns and 15 interceptions in 23 games. And he was averaging 194 yards a game.
Yeah, we had this earlier, Chad, in the season. He was averaging like 150 yards and a couple of scores anytime those two started together. And not just when Hill was in the lineup.
I mean, the good news
Tua.
is, though, he's got him for 2 more years. So he's the guy for 2 more years. I mean, if the question, Davey, is in 2026, do we see a huge decline?
Now, keep in mind,
without Tyreek,
he is under contract.
I think that's a fair
He's under
assumption.
contract through 2026. The Dolphins have an out with him in 2025. That's the out of the contract where they can get out and not have a huge hit. But Tyreek Hill is under contract through 2026. He will be a free agent currently again when he's 33 years old.
Okay, I was just looking back. I saw an article, and it said that you might be right. He might go through 2026. He wanted to get to 10 seasons.
He signed a 4-year contract in 2022 for $120 million.
Gotcha. So, but with Tyreek, his numbers are obviously a lot better. Pass rating of 105.1 with 49 touchdowns to 18 interceptions in 26 games and averages 278.7 yards a game. But just wanted to throw that out there. It's something we'll definitely be monitoring over the years to come. But moving right along.
You know who would love that is Patrick Mahomes.
I think that their offense would look a little bit different if they held on to Tyreek Hill.
They did win a Super Bowl without him.
That's true.
We're heading over to Arlington, Texas, and Dak Prescott will win the MVP.
Chad, I am off the bus with this. I don't trust Dak Prescott. Interceptions will come. I have said this twice. I'll say it a third time. A month in the NFL is an eternity. And the team I'm confident in are the San Francisco 49ers. I'm confident in Philadelphia as well. And Jalen Hurts, while the last 2 weeks have not been pretty, he was also in the MVP conversation. Brock Purdy, who was deemed a bust of an elite quarterback talent for a 3-week span, is now at worst second in the running for most valuable player right now. It's wide open. Dak Prescott has to put up some huge numbers against some good opponents. That's fine. He's been doing that. He's about to have to do it on the road. And I look at what the Eagles' schedule looks like, and I also look at the best team in football in San Francisco and think, I can see the momentum turning towards Brock Purdy after one poor performance from Dak Prescott, where it's more of the interception-prone quarterback than it is the touchdown thrower and on-fire scoreboard producer.
I think Prescott's way closer than before. So I'm way closer to on the bus on this, Davey, than I expected to be coming into it. I still think it's going to be Jalen Hurts. I think the schedule is going to lighten up for Jalen Hurts, and he's about to feast in the month of December moving forward now as that schedule gets easier. I think he's going to pad some stats. I think he would have won it a year ago had he not been injured for that short time. I'm still leaning Jalen Hurts.
And it will be Prescott if Prescott just maintains what he's doing.
Yeah.
He can slip a little bit too, by the way. But if they continue to win at this pace, it's Prescott. I don't look at Dallas and think they're winning the division, going back to a previous discussion we had.
I guess simply, do you think the division winner is the MVP?
I think you're saying Brock Purdy.
I'm thinking. I'm thinking Brock Purdy.
Okay.
I'm thinking Brock Purdy.
I think it's Jalen Hurts.
All right, guys. Well, Thursday Night Football, we go to Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, and, Justin Herbert, done for the year. But Brandon Staley is fired if the Chargers lose to the Raiders on Thursday Night Football.
I'm off the bus on this for this simple reason, and it's a question. Why is he not already fired? If he's not already fired, they're not going to fire him in season. I think they're going to ride this thing out to the end. Then he'll be fired on Black Monday after the regular season ends for the Chargers. So I don't think there's anything that Brandon Staley's going to do that's going to get him fired at this point. It's just the inevitable once the season is over. So, no, not getting fired with a loss to the Raiders.
No, and I'm with Chad here. I'm off the bus with this because while it's not going to happen in season, it's the inevitable that will happen on Black Monday. Staley's out after the season, and he was out after the season prior to the injury to his quarterback because his defense wasn't helping his quarterback. 500 quarterback deserves a lot more than being 500.
Raiders managed to put up 0 this past week. I'm curious what they'll do this week. Guys, moving right along, and at the end of the line, we're going out to L.A., and I've got a baseball one for you here. But the MLB should not allow the Dodgers or any team for that matter to defer a contract like they did with Ohtani.
I'm on the bus with this because it takes out – this was inevitable. This golden contract and the landing spot seems like it was the choice all along, Chad. The idea that you just defer, you can defer this as long as you want to, right? If you've got the player that wants to be in the city and play for the franchise, to each his own. Ohtani's going to do this, but the value here of the player internationally to defer the contract, to me, that's the competitive advantage in that is massive for the Dodgers. Then say the Atlanta Braves or the East Coast teams, based on when you're actually going to be playing your games and how easy it is to travel into said team to watch your favorite player from the international perspective.
I'm on the bus that this should not be allowed. It's also something that's collectively bargained, so the players have a say in this also. They shouldn't be doing it. The league shouldn't be doing it. Teams shouldn't be allowed to do it. We're talking about $68 million annually of a $70 million contract that will not appear on the books for the Dodgers, that they will defer until after the 10 years that he plays. I don't think it's right. To me, it's the equivalent of kind of going back to college football before there were scholarship limitations, and Bear Bryant could have 200 players on scholarship if he wanted. You could do that now with NIL. You could have 170 guys on your roster and have incredible depth and take from other programs and not count them as scholarships. Well, this is the Dodgers with the highest paid guy ever, not really counting his scholarship, not counting his contract. And that's going to help them with their ability to sign other guys. I don't think it's right. I think it's smart. I think it's very selfless of Ohtani to do this. And it's a smart move. And the reports are he suggested it.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do it so they could add better players around him. So, I think it's the competitive thing to do for them and the smart competitive thing to do for the rest of the league. And just from a league standpoint, I hate it.
He is the highest earner off the field of any player.
Yeah.
So it's an easy choice.
$45 million a year.
Yeah. So, if he's going to get 20, right, over the course of this contract, he's deferred all payment through starting in 2034, right? Mm-hmm. That's when the payments begin. A total of 600 and whatever million. I'm at worst, they need to put a cap on how much money can be deferred. There is no cap on that. There's no limit on what the player could do. So, if you're looking at the tax credit and the luxury tax and all that stuff too. It's crazy what the top players can do, and
it's obscene.
And there's only a handful of those dudes.
It's obscene. It's also kind of a loophole that I think most just common sports fans, when they saw the headline, are thinking they can do that. That doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem fair, and it's because it's really not.
What I take from this is the Angels organization is so bad. A guy was willing to give up $680 million 10 years down the line just to win now.
Well, he's gonna get all that money eventually, but yeah, that is probably true also. Now, the Angels were making $20 million in marketing just by having him on the roster. So then you ask, well, what is he worth to the Dodgers? Is it $30 million?
I said this yesterday. They value it double what he was making. He was making between 10 to 20 million. The Angels were. And it's projected that the Dodgers will make between 30 and 40 million annually off of the marketing aspect.
Yeah, and that's good. That's good to offset what they're paying him, but it doesn't change the fact that they're not paying him for the next 10 years. So while he's actually a player for the Dodgers, they're really not paying him at all. They're just making money off of him. Then they'll pay him a decade from now.
And then the new TV and streaming contracts will come, where the Dodgers will be compared to the others, the haves and the have-nots. They'll make more than that $40 million annually off of marketing.
Doesn't pass the smell test.
Top headlines next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, final hour is here for the Tuesday edition of Hot Mic with Ed and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Chad is in the chat on our YouTube channel right now. It's where you can find us streaming live, also at OutKick.com. Just search out OutKick on YouTube, hit subscribe. You'll get the show live or on demand. Same goes for all the shows across the OutKick Network. If you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you. Coming up, Mike Renner will be in studio with us, draft analyst, hit the top quarterbacks and more. And it includes, of course, the Heisman winner and the Heisman finalists. We'll discuss all of that with Mike straight ahead here in studio at 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Seen a variety of quarterbacks, Chad, across the NFL. Last night, Tommy DeVito winning on Monday night against the Green Bay Packers that had been red hot and then lose on a last-second field goal to the New York Giants, who have not been red hot, but their quarterback has. And the same goes for the Tennessee Titans. Awful on the road. They upset the Miami Dolphins down in Florida. 28-27. Vrabel goes for 2 on the first touchdown late in the fourth. Gets it. Titans down by 6. They get a quick change. Get the ball back. Drive down. Score again. And then win the game on the extra point, combined with the fourth down stop where Tua is sacked for the Miami loss. But, Chad, your initial impression of just that game as a whole was about the young quarterback for the Titans, not the QB for the Dolphins.
I think the good and bad of Will Levis in that game, and it was mostly good, but he tried to give the game away. Threw a pick 6. Had a bad pitch on a run play that led to another touchdown. Spotted them 14 points. Titans special teams spotted the other 7. Gives the Dolphins 21 points, a team that is competing to be the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. And then the Titans just took it from them, which is shocking to me. Shocking on the Dolphins' end, but shocking from the Titans' perspective. And Will Levis, when the game was on the line and he had to move the team and make plays, he did so. And the guy has an electric arm. There is no denying that. No one ever would have argued otherwise. I wouldn't argue otherwise with his arm. The arm talent is electric. Decision-making, inaccuracy at times, trying to force things, that goes back to decision-making. Those are all the question marks I have with Will Levis. I still have those questions. But if Will Levis can continue to play like anywhere close to this and look like that and show that level of talent, that is a great thing for the Tennessee Titans, because they have their plan at quarterback. If this continues, they know what it is. There's not looking around for another starter this offseason. Will Levis is your guy. He is your franchise quarterback you're banking on to make things happen, and that offers so much flexibility with what you can do with the rest of the roster.
And the number 1 right now team with the most money to spend under the salary cap as it sits right now.
And a team that hurt their draft position last night with that win, but still should draft pretty high, that then can go and get another position of need high in the draft.
I hurt their draft position, but a lot of teams have been doing that lately.
Oh, the Bears?
The Bears won. The Jets won. The Patriots won. The Titans win. All in Week 14. So while...
Well, what I mean by that is it was a chance to really slide in there to a top 5 area spot, right? And they won instead.
Yeah, fair. I think it's just big that they win a game the way they did, because Vrabel, all the chatter about New England, team, is the message being received like it was with Tannehill a couple of years ago. The one thing I'll say about Levis, I don't know if he makes it through the rest of the season, if he's going to be as physical as he is. Reminds me of Baker Mayfield, diving over piles, lowering the shoulder a few times. That has not worked well for Baker Mayfield. In fact, it led to the demise of Baker, and when he was actually coming off of a really good season, lowering the shoulder against the Houston Texans at home in Cleveland, and he was out for several weeks. Tried to come back and played like crap, and then was on his way out soon thereafter. And the one thing that Levis has got to do is just get down and slide. The rules are in his favor in that. He doesn't have to be the physical quarterback that he was in college with the guys he's going up against in the NFL.
Although it was exciting to watch him truck Jalen Ramsey at one point in the game when he would not slide and go down. I think Baker Mayfield's a really good comparison, Hutton, just overall with mentality.
Yeah.
Will Levis is going off the field like a juiced-up wild man after that touchdown put them ahead. And he looks like you don't see many quarterbacks that rocked up like Will Levis when he's rolling off that field. That mentality does remind me a little bit of Baker Mayfield. He does need to slide. You can't be stupid as the quarterback. You can't constantly go in and try to, play fullback when you're getting tackled. The one thing that I will say about Levis that is in his favor with that, he's a lot bigger than Baker Mayfield. So at least that part of it, he shouldn't be doing it. But I'm saying at least maybe he can withstand some of those hits if he decides to run in a physical way, more so than Baker Mayfield.
It just takes the wrong angle, is all I'm saying. Especially, let me also say, concussion protocol is a lot different too.
Yeah, you're going to get taken out of the game whether you want to or not.
Yeah, just based on how the hit looks from up top in the booth. So and Vrabel had a good line today, asked about that. He told PK, it's like, hey, we've been showing him clips of how to slide. We need to show him clips about how guys have had the bleep kicked out of them and how it hasn't worked to their favor coming back the next week.
It's a good point. But again, good news for the Titans. I think they found their franchise quarterback, or at least a plan for franchise quarterback. He's got more proving to do.
Yes.
But so far, so good. But it's still those, you can't overlook those huge mistakes that really should have cost the Titans the game. But credit Will Levis for making good on it and going. And I don't think the Dolphins handed it to him. He took it. He took it, and that's credit to Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins and that Titans offense for doing so.
Justin Herbert officially done with the finger injury, the broken finger that he suffered in this past weekend's game. He's not playing Thursday night on Thursday Night Football for the Chargers. We mentioned earlier in the show, Brandon Staley's done as the head coach. You're paying your franchise quarterback. Speaking of franchise quarterbacks, Justin Herbert signed a massive contract, $262 million, and guaranteed at signing $133 million. He's averaging $52 million per year, and now he's out. But he wasn't winning at a clip that you would expect because the defense isn't helping said quarterback. He's basically a 500 QB. He's got a cap hit next year, Chad, of just $19 million based on this deal. It goes up and up. But based on the money and the decision they've made to keep him, and they should have, they've got to include him in this coaching search moving forward.
Yep.
He must be involved in getting the best out of Herbert, period, because you're giving him the franchise anyway. Make him the king of Los Angeles. You can do that this offseason by getting and pairing him with the coach that will fit the philosophy and the skill set.
They need to hire a DeMeco Ryans level spark this offseason. They have the chance to do it. They need someone to come in and spark that team. This is every coaching hire is important. This one is super important for that Chargers franchise. Given where they are right now with Justin Herbert, they need that guy that's going to come in and make them a contender right away.
And normally, I'm not for the players getting that type of input. This is imperative.
Yeah, and they should be a contender right now. So they're not. It's not like they're far off.
Look at me.
They just need the right direction and the right spark.
They've got Khalil Mack's leading the league in sacks.
Yeah.
It's not like they don't have talent.
Well, they're going to hire an offensive-minded head coach, I would assume.
And they should.
Yeah.
They should. And didn't have a defensive coordinator that just calls the plays and not the head coach who's doing it like Staley.
Maybe Frank Reich will get another opportunity. The Retread Coaches Association.
Bryce Young looks better without Frank Reich there.
Yeah. Frank Reich.
They're still not a good team. But
good at collecting a buyout right now.
Yes. Chad, this from Dan Wetzel. The woman who initially alleged that she was sexually assaulted by Matt Araiza, the punter, former NFL punter, Buffalo Bills, that was released. She's dropped her civil suit against him. Araiza is making no monetary payment. He receives the right to sue the woman's attorney, but will drop his own defamation suit against the woman. Of course, the attorney was on multiple news outlets going after Araiza and the allegations. And
on our show, too.
And came on the show, yes. I mean, multiple. And would reference certain stories within the suit or the allegations that took place at the party where these allegations stem from. It all ended up with no criminal charges and in what was a thorough investigation behind the scenes. And it ended up with Matt Araiza not even now facing the civil suit that's been dropped, and he's not just making a payment and coming to a settlement. It's not that at all. Matt Araiza is out of the league for something that
he didn't do.
The woman can't prove in court, in civil court, or in criminal court from those charged with actually finding and charging alleged criminals. They couldn't go after Araiza, and now she can't even say that it was more reasonable than not that something happened. This is egregious, and he's back in the league sooner rather than later.
He needs to be, but it doesn't make up for the time lost. And this is what I hate about these stories.
Right.
That accusation made by this woman and her attorney cost this guy how much money and how much time that he has not been able to punt. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what his future holds in punting in the league. I hope someone signs him immediately. I hope he goes on to a nice long career and makes a ton of money. But false allegations like this is how they end up. And it's sad for everyone involved. And it's sad on all sides because much like when, and we talked a lot about it, much like when Carissa Thompson says, oh, sometimes I make things up that the coach may have told me during the week just because I have to have a hit. And then every female sideline reporter does what? They get pissed off and they go after her and say, now you do this, and now we know every sports fan is going to think we're making things up, right? The same goes for false accusations. That's what I hate about this, because there are plenty of legitimate sexual assault victims and rape victims out there. And there are more than we ever want to discuss that never go forward with it. And that, to me, is very, very sad. And what is also sad is when a high-profile false accusation comes forward, and that leads people to start to second-guess a lot of other accusations because of high-profile ones like this that we'll remember. That's all very unfortunate and sad to me. And look, we had the lawyer on. Quite frankly, I thought he was very emotional when he was on with us about it. Most lawyers are very calculated, cold, and just stick with the facts on things. I felt like we were talking to a guy who was playing a part and got very emotional about Matt Araiza the whole time. If there is litigation to be had there, I hope Matt Araiza gets what's due to him through the lawyer or whoever. It's just a sad story all around. I don't take any solace or any joy in any of this. I don't take the fact that Matt Araiza's lost that much of his career and that much income. I hate the situation with the young woman, hate the situation with the attorney. The whole thing just is awful.
Yeah, and that should be criminally prosecuted if it can be proven that it was a made-up allegation. In this case, he's been forced to defend himself for, 16 or 17 months now. It was a $216,000 signing bonus whenever he went to Buffalo. It was a 4-year deal worth a little over $3 million. But what became of Matt Araiza at that moment was he was the punt god. And it was an effort stemming from a night, a year or so prior.
Yeah, at San Diego State.
That came out as soon as he entered the NFL. And, Chad, it led to not just the effort to end his NFL career, but he was forced to defend himself and his reputation and his integrity. And ultimately, that's more important than the $216,000 signing bonus or anything else regarding that. So if you thought of Matt Araiza, you think of this case in a moment of his life where he's known as the punt god.
Yeah.
And the story was he's going to Buffalo where they don't even punt. Remember this story?
Yeah.
And then the week after that, these allegations pop up. And it shouldn't just be with the attorney for defamation. I mean, if you could prove that all of this is straight up made up and orchestrated, that should be criminally prosecuted, period.
I think I agree on the criminal prosecution part. She should not be absolved from that if, in fact, this is all made up. From the civil standpoint, I understand the agreement in reading it that he's now not going to countersue her for defamation as part of her dropping it and him not ever owing her anything.
She's dropping, though, the suit that alleges that he was a part of a gang rape.
Yes.
She's saying that nothing happened, right?
Yes.
Just don't sue me for saying it.
Correct. But what I'm saying is, yes, she's part of the agreement for her to drop the suit and not go forward and for him to owe nothing is for him and his lawyer to agree, okay, now you're not going to sue this client, this young woman, for anything. She's not going to owe you anything. That doesn't stop him from going after the attorney if, in fact, the young woman is claiming that, well, the attorney talked me into it or whatever, right? But Hutton, I'm with you. That should not protect her if, in fact, they can prove she made all this up. That should not protect her from criminal prosecution. What I'm talking about is civil, and that's just an agreement between them for him not to countersue her in civil court. I don't think that should absolve her from criminal prosecution if, in fact, they can prove that either she made it up, she exaggerated it, or she flat out lied about Araiza being there and continued to pursue legal action and money from him.
And, you know, she was 17 at the time, by the way, when the alleged gang rape took place.
Yeah.
Now, it has not been those involved have not denied that the encounter was consensual. They also maintain that she was saying she was in college and an adult.
Yeah, she lied about her age at the party.
Yeah, but
that's
she was
also
in high school
on the record. Yeah,
you
she
know,
was 17 in high school and lied to people about her age.
And that she told police on the scene in 2021 that or on whenever she went to detectives at the time of this incident that she just cooperated that evening with them so that she wouldn't be harmed.
Well, look, moral of the story, I want Araiza to get signed by a team and go on to have a great career. I hope that's the end of the story.
He's way too talented to not be in the NFL, and he should be back in without this even happening. He'd be a great player right now.
So in 2019, Sean McDermott, talking to his team in training camp, gave a really stupid analogy. I mean, really stupid. He was talking about 9/11. He was talking about how well coordinated the attackers on our country were. And he was trying to make a reference about communication. He was trying to make a reference that these folks communicated well to one another. It's totally idiotic. I mean, I don't give a damn whether they communicated well. I don't give a damn whether or not they synchronized. I don't care. They were criminals, terrorists at that got the absolute, well, they're the absolute worst of the worst. And I get a little fired up and I stumble over my words. I actually had stuff written down for this, but here's the thing. You got to understand when you're speaking in public, I don't give a damn if you're trying to make a cute analogy. You never use Hitler. You never use 9/11 terrorists. They are the worst of the worst, period. There's nothing good about them. I don't care. You know, how many times have we heard people talk about Hitler and say, yeah, but no, there's no yeah, but. When you do what these folks did to people and families, our country, other countries, you simply never praise them ever. You're not being clever. You're not being smart. You're not making a great analogy. You're being an insensitive clown. And I never use the word insensitive. I don't. I honestly don't. Insensitive to me is meaningless. Let me change that. You're being just a moron. Don't do it. It's not smart. It's not clever. It's not, well, look at how he. No. Horrible human beings. You never reference John Wayne Gacy or Dahmer or Manson. Never. In no way, shape, or form. Now, having said that, hey, how about we get over ourselves? How about we get over what happened 5 years ago, 4 years ago? And here's the deal in sports, and I've told you this before, okay? There's always the list. And when things go bad, here comes the list. So all of a sudden now, the Buffalo Bills are struggling. All of a sudden now, Sean McDermott's leadership is being called into question. And all of a sudden now, something that McDermott has apologized for, both in front of the team and to his bosses, 4 or 5 years later is being brought out. Now, that's ridiculous. Look, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do stupid things. At least that's what the preacher tells me on Sunday. At least that's what when somebody in church, Traders Point Christian Church, says, hey, look, if you've sinned, raise your hand. And everybody raises their hand and the preacher says, yeah, I did too. We're all sinners. And we all demand forgiveness, except when it comes time to actually forgive and forget. We never do that. We just can't. We won't. We're so full of crap. We just are. And you can act and say like we aren't, but we are. Who here hasn't sinned? Cast the first stone and all that stuff. Oh, yeah, we're all sinners. Boy, when somebody does, particularly in sports, particularly when they're losing, we can't wait to jump on them.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hunter with our rolls on across the OutKick Network. Joining us in studio is Mike Renner with the Messenger, draft analyst, and much more. Mike, always great to see you pop in, man. Hope things are well.
Got a more comfortable chair for him this time.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, it's in the rider for him, Chad. We got the
had to make that happen.
Yeah, the comfy chairs.
We got the Notre Dame song in the rider too. That was fantastic as well.
Hey, Notre Dame. How about Riley Leonard? What do you think about going Sam Hartman to Riley Leonard? And really just overall the whole idea of changing out the quarterback year after year through the transfer portal for any program.
Oh, I think the transfer portal is going to be big for Notre Dame because you're going to get the cream of the academic crop, right? The guys who want like a good degree who are performing at, maybe lesser football schools. That's where they're going to end up, and you've seen it a lot already. But I do think he's an upgrade. He's very similar to Howell in that I don't think either have like big arms. They're not massively talented, but they make good decisions. And I think he's an upgrade in terms of his mobility. Like he can run. That aspect was kind of lost after that ankle injury that he actually did suffer against Notre Dame, then the toe injury against Louisville that kind of ended the season. But that is something that Notre Dame's been missing at the quarterback position for forever. So adding that rushing threat behind, what's going to be one of the best offensive lines in college football yet again, I think is going to be massive for them going forward.
So, Mike, watching him, and I'm just going back to the Duke-Clemson game, for instance, earlier in the year, the hype around Riley Leonard was he's maybe the third quarterback taken in the draft. How does he?
And not really expanding the field. I think what you're seeing with him now is the ability to create big plays. And, sometimes he's going to throw some up for grabs, but he's taking good chances with it. When he does throw it up for grabs, it's 50-50 balls to guys he thinks can win those 50-50 balls. And so I think there's a lot to like. And at minimum, he's playing a more fun brand of football than we ever saw, from like a Ryan Tannehill in that offense. He's at least opening it up. He at least gives you a chance for comeback wins like we saw on Monday night.
How far ahead of schedule for you is C.J. Stroud compared to rookie expectations?
Quite a bit, and it's not just C.J. Stroud. It's any rookie expectations, right? I mean, he's having one of the best all-time rookie seasons, so that's always going to be ahead of schedule. No one anticipates that, even if it was, Trevor Lawrence as a rookie. So he's way ahead of schedule, and it's how he handles pressure, to me, is the biggest eye-opener because, at Ohio State, with that offensive line, didn't see it much, and when he did, it kind of really threw him for a loop. It really, threw him off in terms of he got out of his progressions and would really react strongly to it when he did face pressure. And you're seeing much more nuanced approach when that offensive line protection does break down there in Houston, and that he's still working, 1 to 2 to 3. He's still able to operate from those tight pockets, and that's the biggest eye-opener. He's just been fantastic. And, kind of got a taste of how the other half lives against the Jets this past weekend, unfortunately. Yeah. But, again, no one's going to succeed when your number 1 and number 2 wide receiver are out. That's just the way of the world in the NFL nowadays. It's a playmaker-driven league. Look at the San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy. So I do think that you're still seeing so many encouraging signs, and with his talent, the sky really is the limit for C.J. Stroud.
No doubt. In concussion protocol currently, and he's got the Titans coming up.
Let's get into some 2024 quarterbacks, Mike, starting with Caleb Williams. Has anything that's happened this season with Williams changed your opinion on him as a top prospect?
I don't think it's changed my opinion. I think those flaws were always there. They maybe got amplified by, he saw by his offensive line kind of taking a big step back. He saw more pressure than ever before, struggled with how to handle it. Some of that's been, though, the Lincoln Riley's MO over the course of his career as a play caller is that he doesn't really give you hots. He doesn't really give you the options. When pressure comes, you still have these longer developing concepts that he loves to run, because in college football, oftentimes those can take advantage and break defenses, and that's how they put up so many points. But then every year when they get to the playoffs and face good D-lines back at Oklahoma, those offenses tend not to look the same. So I'm not too worried. I still think the talent is off the charts with him, but it does make it a conversation between him and Drake May from North Carolina, right? And some other quarterbacks in this class who played really well. So I don't think he's going to fall past number 2, but he definitely could fall past number 1.
How heated does that conversation get between Caleb Williams and Drake May as we get closer to draft with teams? Is it simply eye of the beholder type stuff, or do you see a legitimate case that can be made right now for Drake May as the number 1 prospect?
I definitely think it's eye of the beholder because of their 2 different styles in terms of how they play the game. Caleb Williams wants to create explosive plays again and again. Like, he is going to search out, whether it's throwing the ball down the football field or running with his legs, he's going to search out something bigger than the checkdowns. Whereas Drake May is just kind of got to operate your system, right? I think that's what he did so well at North Carolina. And so for certain offensive coordinators and what they want to scheme up, Drake May is going to be a guy that they're going to have a really high grade on. For others, Caleb Williams is going to be that guy. So it's definitely going to be eye of the beholder. That's why I think with the Chicago Bears, it's really going to matter who they want to hire as their head coach is probably who's going to matter, or who they're going to ultimately end up drafting number 1 overall.
Doesn't it kind of feel like Drake May's destined to be a New England Patriot? I've thought about that throughout. As the Patriots get worse and worse, I know they just beat the Steelers, but as they get worse and worse, I keep thinking it's lining up, and this feels like the perfect Patriots quarterback.
It felt like they were almost intentionally losing there at times with how bad that offense looked. Like, in this day and age, your offense should not look as bad as it did for that 3-week stretch. It felt like they were tanking there. Obviously, this past week winning changed all of that. But yeah, it does feel like, unfortunately, for all the Patriots haters out there, which is a lot of people, that Drake May probably ends up there.
Jaden Daniels, it seems like he went from second, third round pick to great player to now he's going to win the Heisman Trophy to now he won the Heisman Trophy to now there's no way he's getting out of the top 10 overall picks. What do you think when you see Jaden Daniels?
I was floored with his development this season. And the biggest thing with him was pocket presence, how he kind of handled pressure. And the LSU offensive line played great this season. Don't get me wrong. That was a big part of it too. But in past years, he took so many bad sacks. He was a guy where if anything collapsed around him, it was either a check down or he was sprinting out the pocket. And he still has some of that to his game. Don't get me wrong. But I think that this year, his ability to still attack down the football field when things went bad around him or when he kind of had to move off a spot was much different than we ever saw in years past. And he's always been accurate. He's always been physically gifted. It's just that part of his game, was that translatable to the NFL? Well, he flipped the script in that regard and now looks like a much different player. Top 10 is still going to be crowded, I think, at the quarterback position. I think if J.J. McCarthy declares he has a good shot at going in that range, I think Bo Nix has a good shot at going in that range. But so it's going to be definitely how, one individual sees it at GM. But I don't think he falls past the first round. I think this guy's a surefire first rounder at this point.
I think the J.J. McCarthy mention there will surprise a lot of people. It's the consistency, the steadiness, and also, is there just a perception that Jim Harbaugh has his quarterbacks ready to go for the league?
I do think so, and I also think Jim Harbaugh could be, coaching in the league here at some point as well, which may add some credence to that. But I do think he also has tools for days. I mean, his arm talent is exceptional, and some of the throws he makes over the middle of the field with zip are what NFL evaluators are looking for, right? Like the deep go balls are real nice, real pretty on highlight reels and look good in college, but those aren't what gets you paid at the NFL level. It's how can you attack that window between linebackers and safeties, and J.J. McCarthy did that more than any of the other quarterbacks on a per-play basis because obviously they run a ton there at Michigan. That's the only thing really holding them back in the draft eval is that it was never really put on his back to go out and win them games there at Michigan, and maybe it will be here come playoff time.
A receiver, is it Marvin Harrison Jr. drop off and then some other guys, or do you see some other receivers that are right up there with Marvin Harrison Jr. as a prospect?
Yeah, I think if he didn't exist, Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't exist, we'd be talking about Malik Neighbors of LSU like a pretty, in a pretty rarefied air as a prospect. That's just how good his tape was. Not too dissimilar just from a pure talent perspective from Jamar Chase coming out of LSU. This guy has off the charts athleticism, off the charts production, obviously, this year as well. And, to me, this is the best 1-2 since A.J. Green and Julio Jones with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. If Neighbors last pass pick 6 in this draft, I'd be very, very surprised. He's just that caliber athlete and that good at the receiver position.
Could he last that long just because the offensive tackle group is so coveted?
Yeah, and obviously it's a rare position, and it is such a good group. But it's also deep itself, right? So I think if you're, drafting highly in this draft, you're very happy with the options that are on the board here, because I think the top 6 are, blue chip, high end type of prospects that don't necessarily come around every year.
The top 6 picks overall?
Yeah, so I would put, the 2 quarterbacks we've already discussed, the 2 offensive tackles being Joe Alt,
and then the
Notre
2
Dame.
receivers.
Yeah, Olu Fashanu of Penn State, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. Like, those guys are, elite sort of prospects.
Is Marvin Harrison Jr. a number 1 overall pick talent in a down quarterback year? Put him in the 20. I don't know if it'd be last year, the year prior.
2022, yeah. So that year, he goes over Aiden Hutchinson. He goes over Trayvon Walker for sure. And I think, that's what I'm talking about.
So
all
he's number 1
those,
pick. He's the first ever.
Yeah, all 6 of those guys that I just kind of mentioned, all 4 of those guys, I guess the 2 OTs and the 2 wide receivers, they could have been number 1 overall picks. And Keyshawn Johnson, I think, was number 1 overall pick at wide receiver. That's the only one previous year to this.
Is Michael Penix Jr. eventually a starter in the NFL, or is he more of a backup level guy when you try to project?
I want him to be. I want him to have a chance because it's unorthodox, right? The way he plays the game of football. It looks weird. It's looked weird all the way back to his time at Indiana when he's a lefty. And even for like a lefty, he has a weird throwing motion with how open he gets with his front foot and how kind of short arm. It's like Phillip Rivers, but left-handed. But every single place he's gone,
Tua looks weird also at times.
Exactly.
For a lefty. There's some unorthodox to his game as well.
100%. But I believe in the player himself. And now, he'll miss throws on tape. He'll have some boneheaded decisions, but he avoids sacks better than anyone else in college football. He had fewer sacks his entire collegiate career than Caleb Williams had this season, which is an insane stat. But that's just who he is. Like, he's a guy who plays winning football consistently. And so I think he'll get picked apart by evaluators, and probably all the other quarterbacks we've mentioned already are going to go higher than him in the draft. But he deserves a shot wherever he goes because, like I said, every single place he's gone, he shouldn't have been. Shouldn't have been as good as he was, but was good and won games.
Mike, let everyone know where we can find you on social and the work you're doing at the Messenger.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at MikeRenner_. And I have a top 100 coming out later this week. Had a mock draft come out last week. So doing a lot of draft-heavy stuff there over on the website.
Always great stuff, man. We love having you in studio.
For sure, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Grab some moonshine on the way out if you want.
You like that chair, too? Is that an upgrade?
Oh, it's definitely an upgrade.
Good.
My back feels fantastic.
I mean, it looks – I feel relaxed looking at people sit in that chair. It's just so comfortable looking. It really puts me at ease.
By the way, Chad played hurt today through a kidney stone. How about that?
I've had a
passed it this morning.
Gallstone, and those are brutal. I was in the hospital for like 6 hours just writhing. So I don't envy you for having that.
Did the doctor tell you, is it similar pain to kidney stones?
Yes. They said it's like something's trying to get through a hole down there that's not getting through.
Yep, that's exactly
Chad's
the way I felt this morning.
He's not sitting out the bowl season.
I passed the kidney stones, but that's exactly the way I felt this morning. It's my fifth one, I think.
Thanks to Mike Renner for joining us in studio
in life,
from the Messenger. Coming up, we've got plenty of headlines to discuss going into tonight, and we look ahead a bit to the sports weekend.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Chad has been attending, of course, a lot of sports events for his daughter. He's coaching a lot of them, too. Now he's about to be attending a lot of the theater.
Theater. Yes, my daughter's taken interest in the theater lately. She was cast. She hasn't been cast yet, but she had a tryout and made the drama club, and she will be in 101 Dalmatians at school.
Yes.
There is a Christmas program tonight, which she has maybe the most words spoken of the kids in terms of the presentation. I don't.
Interesting.
I know nothing about it.
Is she
I
the
haven't
narrator?
heard of run lines
Is this
or anything. She's a character in it, but they're doing like a Christmas play.
Right.
Something to do with a Christmas story, but I don't know what. I'm not exactly sure what the theme is.
The speaking parts.
I don't think it's just the Christmas story, but she'll be speaking. And then church on Sunday, she has the most speaking parts in the Christmas program.
Love it.
She's taken an interest to the dramatic. I don't think that bodes well for me as she grows into teenage years as my daughter. But she loves it, so we love it too.
Chad's going to be the parent that has to have the account in place. You'll have control over the trust.
I'm going to be like Macaulay Culkin, the Culkin's parents. You're saying?
Yeah.
Going to make money off my kids and keep it from them. Yeah, you can't make any money off this Disney hit that you just made and made a ton of money. That's all for mom and dad. The other thing I've entered into now as a softball coach of a travel team is the recruiting world, which there is recruiting that takes place with 8-year-old travel softball. I have found this out the hard way.
NIL.
And I'm very, very uncomfortable doing it. I'm very much, when I'm on the phone with a parent, they're asking about the program and everything else.
Negotiating.
I give my whole mantra as a coach, and as a coach of 8-year-olds, I always say, if there's one girl who does not want to play softball anymore because of an experience with our team, I have failed as a coach. My number one objective is to teach the game and to get them wanting to play more, to have fun playing it and wanting to come back and play more and enjoy doing it, and not to ruin them from a sport at 8 years old. That works with a lot of the parents, but there are other parents who may come back and say, okay, so what position will my daughter be playing?
Dude, I think
is there NIL involved?
I think there's something to be said for how well you know the rule book.
Knowing the rule book is definitely.
I would use that to your advantage.
Is definitely key. I will say you play in different like jurisdictions under different associations.
So it's not the same.
So the
type.
rules change,
Yeah.
and there's been tournaments where I have to study up on certain rules for different tournaments because it's totally different in one compared to the other one. We've had coaches too. One that was just completely violating a rule, and I had to call time in the first inning and go to the umpire.
You want to win?
He's like, "Oh yeah, you're right." And it was the courtesy runner. He just put whoever he wanted out there and had to be the last recorded out. And he actually apologized. Said, I really wasn't trying to put one over on you. We just played in
testing your
5
knowledge
other
of the
tournaments that didn't have this rule, and I did it my own way there. Gotta keep them accountable. Gotta hold people, keep them in check, Hutton.
Chad, today is the 1 year anniversary of the passing of Mike Leach. Swing your sword. 1 year ago today, we lost him as the head coach and just one of the better interviews and discussions that you could have with a man, not just a coach, but anyone, for just interesting facts, knowledge, wisdom, and passed away whenever we least expect it. Just like any of his interviews, he'd come up with a topic when you least expect it, and it would be fascinating.
There's a soundbite from Mike Leach that could fit any walk of life, any situation you're in. Heck, I saw one circulating about the College Football Playoff Committee.
Yep.
And how he had a problem with the committee and about them trying to figure out what was going to happen. And it was great. And it was brilliantly said.
The makeup of those sitting on at the table.
Yeah, it was great. And I think prophetic in a lot of ways when you look at what's going on now with the committee. Mike Leach is such an interesting guy. This time a year ago when he passed away, I bought his book on Geronimo. If you remember, Hutton, we had his co-author on with him, and I read this is just an illustration of how interesting Mike Leach is. I have not read Swing Your Sword, the book he did with Bruce Feldman, I think it was. Not read that. Interested, and I will at some point, but I read Mike Leach writing about Geronimo and lessons that could apply to life from Geronimo. And it's one of the better books that I've ever read. He's terrific. Storyteller, writer, historian, obviously football coach. R.I.P. Mike Leach. The Pirate will always be missed.
Yeah, and you're right. And the comments about the College Football Playoff Committee, it's made up of a lot of athletic directors. And there's one specific former coach and one player spot at the table too, and that's it. There's also a reporter that's serving in Kelly Whiteside. But she's serving through 2025.
Yeah.
But there's no rhyme or reason to the rotation of those serving and those deciding the parameters and what is or is not the focus of the debates in the room at the time, right?
And I'm less concerned about who's on the committee and more concerned about the criteria they use and the methods they use about how they pick the teams. And I get what Mike Leach is saying, and he's right about that. I've said whatever the next level of college football is that we may enter with the NCAA, I think if Nick Saban retires from Alabama, he'd be the perfect czar of college football to sit in that seat. Mike Leach, one of a kind. It's important to celebrate a guy who had that much interest in so many things and got that much out of life. And you see his imprint all over college football. I mean, look around. Jeff Lebby, Josh Heupel, go down the list of guys who were impacted by Mike Leach as a coach, and that Mike Leach tree of coaches that's having success. He did very well.
And that's why the fan base is thrilled with Levy. Based on his.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
And
Mississippi
compared
State,
to the defensive-minded coach that was very good with Mike Leach as the offensive mind and the head coach.
We interviewed Zach Arnett at SEC Media Days, and there was just something off in the interview. I'm thinking, I can't tell if
just
he's
straight football, and that's it.
Fully embracing, like it's the opposite. And that's not a knock on Zach Arnett. I guess it's probably just the impression we got from Mike Leach having coached that program.
Yeah.
And how he would talk about anything. And you're right, Hutton. Arnett is all ball all the time. Had no other interest, it seemed like, but talking about ball.
Also, all ball is Bill Belichick. Tom Curran, a friend of the show with NBC Sports Boston, he said that a decision was made on Bill Belichick's future as head coach with the Patriots right after the game in Germany, which was a 10-6 loss to the Indianapolis Colts. This from earlier, yesterday. He said on NBC Sports Boston, when they came out of Germany, conversations I had that week made it very clear that a decision was made. They were going to play out the string, and at the end of the year, there would be a parting of the ways for a variety of reasons. You don't fire Bill Belichick during the season. It's not going to happen. Additionally, though, he's an asset. He's under contract. We reported after NFL media reported there was a long-term extension in place that would keep Bill locked up long-term, that it's only through next year. So that would not be something that would be in the way of getting him on to the next gig or into retirement, one or the other. The Germany game, the Commanders game, the Saints game, all huge marquee games. And then there was the Chargers game after that. I just think because they won in Pittsburgh in prime time, I don't think it quells anything. That from Tom Curran. Winning a game isn't going to do anything for the future of how they finish and the future of Bill Belichick. He's out, according to reports. And Curran came on with us very early on in the season, bringing up all the storylines and the weirdness of the last year and a half plus. And he agreed with us in the sentiment of it's been strange. There's something that's fractured in the relationship between Belichick and but between the Krafts, Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft, and that it was a hot seat season. Turns out it's been worse than that. 2 wins, currently 3 wins now, holding the number 2 overall pick because Chicago holds it. Carolina with just 1 win. They're the number 1 overall pick currently. So you brought up that maybe we're looking at potential Drake May Patriots. We're looking at potentially a new head coach paired with Drake May in New England.
I watched College Game Day Saturday from the Army-Navy game in Foxborough, and I watched it specifically because Bill Belichick was going to be on there, but also to see if Robert Kraft had any association with the show. He did. No interaction with Bill Belichick, an hour and a half apart. Robert Kraft joined the set and talked about how great it was for Foxborough in New England to host that game and talked about servicemen and women and did his part. Pat McAfee at the end of it, very awkward moment, said, hey, I just want to say we all know what's coming at the end once the season ends, and I don't envy you. It's going to be tough. I know. But we don't have to talk about it, though. I know you don't want to talk about it. And then Kraft was just like, thank you, guys. Appreciate it, after he said that, then got off the set. And Bill Belichick, by the way, terrific.
Yeah.
Talking history of Navy.
He loves history.
And
especially...
he loves Lee Corso. And Lee Corso was in tears before that because they had a big tribute to him on video of his time at Navy. And when Belichick took the set and he just started telling stories about being a kid and following around his dad and Lee Corso and telling stories, specific moments in the game with the Army-Navy game. I mean, Bill Belichick lights up talking about things like that. He was great. Total different Belichick. Just like when you see on any documentary, Hutton, we've seen him there where he'll light up talking about other teams and years past. He was great on the set with College Game Day talking Army-Navy.
Was he good enough to be that guy?
To be Lee Corso?
No, I don't think, maybe not the gimmick like Corso, but what is he TV ready?
He
like
could
that?
be. I think Bill Belichick could do it if he wanted to. I just don't think he really has the desire to be that guy as long as you have to be in a studio setting or on a pregame show.
I think there's a fit somewhere as long as it's right down his wheelhouse of the history of the game, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's true. He's not the entertainer that Corso is.
He would be the most coveted guy for television covering the NFL.
But way too
for
dry.
Everyone. But he doesn't, I'm telling you, if you watch this and we've seen it, he doesn't have to be that way. He was smiling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He was having a great time, complimenting Lee Corso, answering questions completely with full sentences and even maybe, dare I say, a paragraph that he would give as an answer at times. Totally different Bill Belichick than what you see on television when he's in a press conference talking about his team.
The longest answer I've heard him give was 2 years ago, maybe. He was asked about the importance of long snapper and how it has evolved. He gave like a 5-minute answer in a presser.
It is such a weird. By the way, the food in the press box is terrific in Foxborough. But Hutton, you've been there more than me, but I've been there for a couple of playoff games. And I remember going to one of the Bill Belichick press conferences. It is a strange situation, the way they walk around on eggshells around him.
Yeah.
And when that media team, the media relations team, walks in, I mean, you feel like you're at a military briefing. You could tell the media there is used to it, but people are kind of, you sit at attention when Belichick walks in. Okay, guys, coach is here. And then you ask a question, you just know you're getting nothing from him. But it's even as strange as it may seem to an outsider watching it on television, being there watching Bill Belichick up close and watching how the Patriot support staff treats him around it, it's even stranger.
Bill Belichick could go buy one of the hoodies at the OutKick store, cut off the sleeves, and, be very comfortable for the holiday season. Buy one, get one 50% off right now, limited time. Shop.outkick.com, your favorite polos, T-shirts, and more.
He looked great.
When you visit shop.outkick.com and score 50% off, all you got to do is visit shop.outkick.com, and, the discounts automatically
He can wear most likely to yell at the ref, but he doesn't do a lot of yelling at the ref.
Not really, no. It would just...
I doubt he'd wear that shirt that says toxic masculinity is hot. I'm trying to think of what he would wear. Maybe the OutKick polo. You might put that on.
Yeah, the polo. Yeah.
And thanks to Coach Belichick for weighing in on our discussion today.
Belichick. Reports are he's done at the end of the year. I don't think he's done coaching.
Maybe done in New England, but I'm with you. I think he's going to go somewhere else. Give it a go.
Back at it tomorrow. Hope you'll join us. Clay Travis will be with us. Always a great Wednesday. We start at 3 o'clock Eastern right here across the OutKick Network for Hot Mic with Hutton with Row.